Of horror stories about near misses and things like that, but most of what I see is just less than a metre in between the pedestrians and the cars, and 3 lanes of traffic going as fast as they want. It's really not a secure space because there's no separation in between the traffic, which is loud and fast, and the footpath where usually school kids are walking across.
I use the Bell Street Bridge almost every day, maybe 4 times a week, and it just makes me feel very unsafe. I myself have had terrible experiences on the bridge.
The thing is, I haven't seen one. I've actually been in an accident. We were just like traffic, waiting for the green light, and then out of nowhere, pow, the back of the car just gets slammed into by another one. We practically jump out of our seats.
It's one of the main connections to get me home, so yeah, I have to use it on a daily basis. I've seen some near misses. I've been in a few near misses myself, especially around the little island in front of the service station.
So I was actually involved in a car accident myself. It was in the rain, a lady lost control of her van and actually went into the barricade. So I got pulled back from that and then had to pull one of the ladies out of the car. I was probably in year 9. So that was pretty traumatic and pretty scary to see. That kind of put me off using the bridge, especially by myself. It's very small and it's especially after school and before school, there's lots of kids going to and forth, especially because there's a 7-Eleven there. So it can be pretty packed, and obviously after school traffic makes it really, really hard. They've already implemented different lower limits, but in a sense that doesn't really change anything because not everyone follows the rules. Our school has lots of active transport modes. We use the bike paths and things that surround the Bell Street Bridge, including Merri Creek. There's kids coming to and from every single day, and I think that it's super important that we make that environment more safer and more easily accessible for students of all ages.
That is why we're asking all parties to commit $250,000 to investigate and design safe and accessible active travel options over Coburg's Bell Street Bridge. We need this investigation to be completed urgently within the next 12 months.
We're ready for all levels of government to work together with the community to promote safe, active travel for the current and future students of Coburg High School and the communities of Merri-bek and Darebin cities. To show your support, visit change.org and sign the No More Accidents in the Bell Street Risk Zone petition.
I had insulation put up on the top of the roof. It was a good thing to do. When I read the ad in your local paper, and it said, it does help, and the lady was very happy. And I said, if she's happy, I think I will be happy too. And yeah, I think it's the best thing that I came up with. The difference that it's made, it's comfortable, especially in summer. I hate summer, yeah. Winter I can put a jacket on, but summer it's terrible for me. So this, keeps everything down nice and clean, comfortable for the summer. I have to go through the winter, but I think it will be just as good. Yeah, just have it done. The people who actually looked after the job and done the job, it was the best people that I come across. I felt very comfortable. I felt like if I was with my brothers. Yeah, so have no fear. They're great people.
Merri-bek Council is currently rolling out a new 4-bin waste service. This is part of the state government curbside reforms, and all Victorian councils will move to a 4-bin system. New purple-lidded glass recycling bins are currently being delivered to households and businesses across Merri-bek. Glass recycling bin collections will start in July, so please store your purple bins somewhere safely until then. Until glass recycling collection begins, continue using your yellow mixed recycling bin for all recycling material. From July this year, purple glass recycling bins will be picked up monthly or every 4 weeks. You can place your empty glass jars and bottles into this bin. If jars and bottles have their lids, make sure that they are kept on and not disposed of loosely inside the bin. By sorting your glass into a separate bin, you are improving the quality of recyclables in Merri-bek. You can learn more about the 4-bin service at merri-bek.vic.gov.au www.merri-bek.com.au/yournewbins.
I'm here on behalf of the City of Moreland to start the official process of renaming our municipality. The Council received a letter from the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung said, retention of this name for the principal civic body for a diverse community is untenable. The Council agreed.
The language of this land is not lost, it's still looking for its people. And this is one big step actually to bring the voice of the land back by naming the local language area. Language connects us to culture. It's how we learn everything, how we express everything. Now let's use all the wisdom, resources, capacity, knowledge, history to learn from the past and never let it happen again, and move forward and help the people that need it the most.
Open Streets trials are initiatives to open the streets to people walking, riding, scooting, and close the streets to car traffic just to drop off and pick up times. We know that a lot of schools in Merri-bek really struggle with congestion. We also know that a lot of families want to walk or ride to school, but the dangerous zones outside the school gates often push people away from making that choice. So it's really about just creating a really hyper-safe, sustainable, healthy space in front of schools.
It's been absolutely brilliant. The kids are loving coming to school on Tuesdays. There's a real vibe and a sense of, joy when we start the day together. Lots of families are starting to come back. Our student attendance has increased on the days that we have open streets, and also we have less lateness as well. So it's just been brilliant all around.
We don't normally walk, we normally drive, so it's a really good incentive to get parents that don't normally do it, doing it. Once we're out and walking, they really enjoy it. It's so much safer. The kids love coming in here, playing, drawing with chalk.
This has been probably the highlight. Parents are saying, wow, can we do this more often, which has been fantastic. To see the joy on the kids' faces and to hear them saying, wanting to ride their bikes and wanting to have a play on the street's been amazing.
We have a huge percentage of our students riding to school. You can just see how successful it is. We've got kids riding, parents coming along, just really enjoying themselves. And it's changed my thinking. For someone who drove to work, bought my own bike and riding to work each day, it's amazing.
It's a fun experience. I normally walk, but today everyone's doing it, so I might as well join in.
It's also an initiative that residents and the local community can take part in. We want to see people coming out, having a coffee, we want to see people talking to their neighbours, and it's been really fantastic to partner with Bicycle Network and the schools to run these initiatives and really see, some healthy, happy street space.
Being part of Open Streets has been really exciting. We're interested in making people view their neighbourhood streets in a different way, being spaces for everyone and multi-use spaces, not just for throughways for cars.
And just listen to all this noise. It's great having everyone have so much fun around you and just being active. No, we're really stoked. We should happen every day.
This is very attractive for parents and kids to spend together. I think it's encouraging people to ride to the school.
I think it's definitely a good idea to get people active and getting people involved with the community. Because of this, it got a lot of me and my friends to ride to school every day. I get to see all my friends and talk to new people.
My name is Angelica Panopoulos and I'm your new Mayor of Merri-bek City Council. I'm a lifelong local. I've just finished uni, so I'm a law grad. I'm an activist and I've been a councillor for 2 years now. So today we are along the Moonee Ponds Creek in Glenroy, and this is somewhere where I've come ever since I was a little kid with my family, with my dog, down for walks by the creek and played in the park, and I've got lots of fun memories here. There's a lot to love about Merri-bek. I think the fact that we've got such a diverse, eclectic mix of people here who call this area home and who all care about this area is something that really sets us apart and makes me quite proud to be from this area. So my spare time's been a bit limited up until now. I do like just to see my friends, to relax, read a good book, and to get out and to see new things. It's hard to choose just one or two of my favourite places in Merri-bek. I think most important is wherever I am with my friends or my family and having a good time, that's where I like to be. Also had some great times just sitting in Coburg Mall and having chats with people, and so really anywhere where there's a bit of energy and a bit of life happening, I think it's quite fun to be around there. There's a few big challenges facing Merri-bek right now. In terms of broader challenges, I think we need to work together to bring the community with us on particular journeys, say to reconciliation, to other forms of equality that we need to have happen in our community. As the Mayor of Merri-bek, I hope to achieve a few things. I hope that first and foremost, we can make council seem a lot more accessible to people, and as though this isn't something that you have to wait until you're much older to do or until you've got X amount of years of work experience. I think making it quite clear to people that this is council, it belongs to you as much as it belongs to me, and so we should all get involved, and I really want that to be the overriding, message throughout this mayoral year.
Well, they did putting the solar panel on top of the roof. It looks beautiful, and what is important is knowing the help that it could for us for our energy sufficiency. I saw everyone here in our neighborhood is putting solar, so I said to myself, I will think about it. I will not lose anything, so I choose to put it, and that makes a difference. It helps us when we receive the bill now. We saw the difference from the usual amount that we paid, so it went down, and I think it will help us. The money that is being not paid before, we can use it with other things, and I think the overall help of that solar being installed in our roof is really to save some money and also helping the climate change. And it will really make a difference for the earth, in a way, it is helping us. So I will recommend, don't hesitate to put this solar panel in your roof. It is a big difference to have it.
Pedestrians and bike riders, including a large and growing number of Coburg High School students, are at risk every day on and around Coburg's Bell Street Bridge at the Nicholson and Elizabeth Street intersection.
The area is notorious for traffic accidents. Recently, a Coburg High School student was injured by a car while walking in the area.
Footpaths on the Bell Street Bridge are significantly narrower than other bridges in the area, yet the Bell Street Bridge carries more traffic than almost any other road in Merri-bek, 47,000 vehicles a day. The narrow paths, along with high volumes of cars, trucks and buses, pose an unacceptable risk to safety and accessibility in our communities.
We know that more than 1,000 people walk and wheel across the bridge on weekdays, just in the morning and afternoon peak periods. Even more use the bridge during the day and on weekends. We also know that students are worried about walking and cycling across the bridge. And for many, it's their only way to and from school, or to access the after-school activities and shops.
I've heard lots of horror stories about near misses and things like that, but most of what I see is just less than a metre in between the pedestrians and the cars, and 3 lanes of traffic going as fast as they want. It's really not a secure space because there's no separation in between the traffic, which is loud and fast, and the footpath where usually school kids are walking across.
I use the Bell Street Bridge almost every day, maybe 4 times a week, and it just makes me feel very unsafe. I myself have had terrible experiences on the bridge.
The thing is, I haven't seen one. I've actually been in an accident. We were just like traffic, waiting for the green light, and then out of nowhere, pow, the back of the car just gets slammed into by another one. We practically jump out of our seats.
It's one of the main connections to get me home. So yeah, I have to use it on a daily basis. I've seen some near misses. I've been in a few near misses myself, especially around the little island in front of the service station.
So I was actually involved in a car accident myself. It was in the rain, a lady lost control of her van and actually went into the barricade. So I got pulled back from that and then had to pull one of the ladies out of the car. I was probably in year 9. So that was pretty traumatic and pretty scary to see. That kind of put me off using the bridge, especially by myself. It's very small and it's especially after school and before school, there's lots of kids going to and forth, especially because there's a 7-Eleven there. So it can be pretty packed, and obviously after school traffic makes it really, really hard. They've already implemented different lower limits, but in a sense that doesn't really change anything because not everyone follows the rules. Our school has lots of active transport modes. We use the bike paths and things that surround the Bell Street Bridge, including Merri Creek. There's kids coming to and from every single day, and I think that it's super important that we make that environment more safer and more easily accessible for students of all ages.
That is why we're asking all parties to commit $250,000 to investigate and design safe and accessible active travel options over Cobig's Bell Street Bridge. We need this investigation to be completed urgently within the next 12 months.
We're ready for all levels of government to work together with the community to promote safe, active travel for the current and future students of Coburg High School and the communities of Merri-bek and Darebin cities. To show your support, visit change.org and sign the No More Accidents in the Bell Street Risk Zone petition.
I had insulation put up on the top of the roof. It was a good thing to do. When I read the ad in your local paper, and it said, it does help, and the lady was very happy. And I said, if she's happy, I think I will be happy too. And yeah, I think it's the best thing that I came up with. The difference that it's made, it's comfortable, especially in summer. I hate summer. Yeah, winter I can put a jacket on, but summer it's terrible for me. So this, keeps everything down nice and clean, comfortable for the summer. I have to go through the winter, but I think it will be just as good. Yeah, just have it done. The people who actually looked after the job and done the job, it was the best people that I come across. I felt very comfortable. I felt like if I was with my brothers. Yeah, so have no fear. They're great people.
Merri-bek Council is currently rolling out a new 4-bin waste service. This is part of the state government curbside reforms, and all Victorian councils will move to a 4-bin system. New purple-lidded glass recycling bins are currently being delivered to households and businesses across Merri-bek. Glass recycling bin collections will start in July, so please store your purple bins somewhere safely until then. Until glass recycling collection begins, continue using your yellow mixed recycling bin for all recycling material. From July this year, purple glass recycling bins will be picked up monthly or every 4 weeks. You can place your empty glass jars and bottles into this bin. If jars and bottles have their lids, make sure that they are kept on and not disposed of loosely inside the bin. By sorting your glass into a separate bin, you are improving the quality of recyclables in Merri-bek. You can learn more about the 4-bin service at merri-bek.vic.gov.au/your-new-bins.
I'm here on behalf of the City of Moreland to start the official process of renaming our municipality. The Council received a letter from the Wurundjeri Wurrung. The Wurundjeri Wurrung said, retention of this name for the principal civic body for a diverse community is untenable. The Council agreed.
The language of this land is not lost, it's still looking for its people. And this is one big step actually to bring the voice of the land back by naming the local language area. Language connects us to culture. It's how we learn everything, how we express everything. Now let's use all the wisdom, resources, capacity, knowledge, history to learn from the past and never let it happen again, and move forward and help the people that need it the most.
Open Streets trials are initiatives to open the streets to people walking, riding, scooting, and close the streets to car traffic just to drop off and pick up times. We know that a lot of schools in Merri-bek really struggle with congestion. We also know that a lot of families want to walk or ride to school, but the dangerous zones outside the school gates often push people away from making that choice. So it's really about just creating a really hyper-safe, sustainable, healthy space in front of schools.
It's been absolutely brilliant. The kids are loving coming to school on Tuesdays. There's a real vibe and a sense of, joy when we start the day together. Lots of families are starting to come back. Our student attendance has increased on the days that we have open streets, and also we have less lateness as well. So it's just been brilliant all around.
We don't normally walk, we normally drive, so it's a really good incentive to get parents that don't normally do it, doing it. Once we're out and walking, they really enjoy it. It's so much safer. The kids love coming in here, playing, drawing on with chalk.
This has been probably the highlight. Parents are saying, wow, can we do this more often, which has been fantastic. To see the joy on the kids' faces and to hear them saying, wanting to ride their bikes and wanting to have a play on the street's been amazing.
We have a huge percentage of our students riding to school. You can just see how successful it is. We've got kids riding, parents coming along, just really enjoying themselves. And it's changed my thinking. For someone who drove to work, bought my own bike and riding to work each day, it's amazing.
It's a fun experience. I normally walk, but today everyone's doing it, so I might as well join in.
It's also an initiative that residents and the local community can take part in. We want to see people coming out, having a coffee, we want to see people talking to their neighbours, and it's been really fantastic to partner with Bicycle Network and the schools to run these initiatives and really see, some healthy, happy street space.
Being part of Open Streets has been really exciting. We're interested in making people view their neighbourhood streets in a different way, being spaces for everyone and multi-use spaces, not just for throughways for cars.
And just listen to all this noise. It's great having everyone have so much fun around you and just being active. No, we're really stoked. We should happen every day.
This is very attractive for parents and kids to spend together. I think it's encouraging people to ride to the school.
I think it's definitely a good idea to get people active and getting people involved with the community. Because of this, it got a lot of me and my friends to ride to school every day. I get to see all my friends and talk to new people.
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. Can I firstly check that everybody in the gallery can hear me? Oh, no, I'm getting some nods from people. I'll speak closer to the microphone then, and hopefully you can all hear me now. Yes, okay, great. So my name is Angelica Panopoulos, and I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council, and I'm also the chairperson for tonight's council meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our council meeting tonight. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and we wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of these lands and waterways, and would like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to the life of this city. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and Facebook. The recording will also be available as video on demand, and attendees are advised that they will be recorded during the council meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. I also want to start off by saying that Merri-bek Council, we're an inclusive place, and I want to make sure that everyone in our community can be safe and welcomed. And this is something that we pride ourselves on. We won't be tolerating offensive comments, so this will act as a formal warning that if there are offensive or threatening or abusive comments made by people in the gallery, I will ask that you leave this council meeting, or that security may also request you to leave this meeting. I'll also just mention, in terms of the banners that people are holding, feel free to hold them up, however, just not in a way that obstructs the views of those around you. So thank you. And in the event of an emergency or a disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you for your understanding and your cooperation. So councillors and officers in attendance. I'd like to introduce the councillors that we've got in attendance for tonight. We've got Councillor Helen Davidson, our Deputy Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Councillor James Conlon.
Hi, everybody.
Councillor Adam Pulford.
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Mark Riley. Councillor Monica Hart. Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening.
Councillor Sue Bolton. And the following councillors have been approved to attend tonight's meeting online. And we've got Councillor Helen Pavlidis.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. And we've also had Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon and Councillor Lambros Tapanos approved to attend tonight's meeting online. I'll also introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Kathy Henderson, to my right, and the senior management team who are around us. Now, in terms of apologies for councillors, from councillors for tonight's meeting, are there any that councillors are aware of? No? Any requests for leaves of absences? No. All right, in that case, we'll move on to the disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to disclose on any of our items? No. If not, we'll move on to the next item then. Firstly, I'm just going to move that we reorder the order of business for our agenda this evening, given the significant attention and the people that we've got in the gallery tonight. So I'm just going to move that the order of business be altered and that Council considers the following items first, after public question time, and before returning to the order of items as printed in the agenda. So the first one will be the Notice of Motion 8.2 War in Gaza. The second one will be the Notice of Rescission 9.1 Conclusion of Kent Road Separated Bike Lane Trial and Next Steps for Coburg to Glenroy Bike Route. The third will be Notice of Rescission 9.2 DeKalb Street Bicycle Lanes. And the fourth will be the confirmation of minutes of the council meeting held on the 18th of October 2023. So since I've moved that, could I please have a seconder? Councillor Riley to second. Do we need any speakers in favour or against? No. All right, all those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Great, so we'll move on to now item number 4, which is acknowledgements and other matters. And also welcome to Councillor Lambros Tapanos, who's just joined us online. So provision of up to 10 minutes is provided in our agenda for councillors to acknowledge and recognise the achievements of local individuals and organisations and raise matters considered important to council that are not already listed in the agenda. Councillors, are there any acknowledgements or other matters that you'd like to raise for this evening? If not, we will now move on to petitions. So there are no petitions in the agenda. However, we have received one petition since the agenda was produced. A petition has been received containing 163 signatures requesting that council upgrade flood lighting at Rayburn Reserve in Pascoe Vale. Does any councillor have any conflict to disclose on this? If not, the lead petitioner, Kelvin Thompson, is online tonight to present the petition. We are admitting him in. Hi, Kelvin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Excellent. Feel free to present on the petition that you've submitted.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words in support of the petition. In June 2020, Moreland City Council engaged the consultants WSP to prepare a preliminary design report and cost estimate for a new floodlighting upgrade for Rayburn Reserve, Landals Road, Pascoe Vale. The report concluded that as a consequence of our site inspection and assessment, we believe that the existing floodlighting installation would fall well short of complying with the relevant Australian standards for appropriate illumination levels for sports ground floodlighting and the minimisation of spill light and glare. It found that if current Australian standard requirements for floodlighting were applied, the existing floodlighting should be demolished and replaced by a new floodlighting installation to illuminate the whole of the football oval. They described the existing lights as significantly insufficient. Now, councillors will be aware, but The Pascoe Vale Football Club was established in 1918, over 100 years ago. It's got a long, proud and successful history at Rayburn Reserve, and that success continues. We're now fielding 3 senior men's team, a women's senior team, and no fewer than 17 juniors, boys and girls teams in the Essendon District Football League, which means we have close to 450 participants. Those 20 teams are all based at Rayburn Reserve, which is used for training every weeknight. This level of use is challenging, and the poor standard of lighting, which has not been upgraded for decades, make training at night a risk for finger and other injuries. So we would greatly appreciate Council's initiative to ensure that lighting at Rayburn Reserve is brought up to the standard of other reserves as soon as possible. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for talking to the petition. Councillors, is there anyone that would briefly like to speak to the petition? Councillor Yildiz, and then I'll ask for a mover for the petition.
Sure. What's really sad is that, Kelvin just mentioned a club that's over 100 years old. It's in the EDFL Premier Division. It's probably our most successful club right now in the EDFL. To have a club that has the standard of lighting they've got there currently is actually really embarrassing. Any of you councillors go there during training, there are young kids that play on that ground. The lighting is the worst I've ever seen in any ground. And I know that we tend to find money in our budgets following our resolutions for a range of other things, but a Rayburn Reserve, we keep overlooking it. We keep making commitments, and unfortunately, it doesn't become a priority in the budget. I urge you, councillors, please take 15 minutes out of your busy schedules, go down to Rayburn Reserve, and have a look at the lighting. The venue is fantastic. I think the change rooms have been upgraded, but this is a local issue where you have got over 600 kids. Women. The Pascoe Vale Football Club women's team is one of the most successful football teams, not just in the EDFL, but in the entire league. We've got players from that club that have ended up playing in the AFL Women's League. So that's how successful this club is, and yet we've got substandard lights at this venue. I strongly suggest that councillors go down and have a look and make their own minds up.
Thank you, Councillor Yildiz. So I'll ask for a motion, that the petition be received. Councillor Yildiz to move, Councillor Hart to second. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, are there any petitions to be tabled on behalf of residents? No? Okay, now we'll move on to item 6, which is questions of council and community statements. So the time provided for questions and statements is 30 minutes, and this time can only be extended by another 30 minutes by resolution of council. If we don't have the time to answer your question, it will be taken on notice and responded to in writing. Priority will be given to the questions and statements that relate to matters listed in the agenda. If time allows, questions about items other than those listed on the agenda will be considered. A maximum of 2 questions or statements in any combination is allowed per person, and questions or statements that relate to a matter listed in the agenda will be dealt with first. If you've registered to ask a question, when I invite you, you or your representative must state your name and your suburb, and then ask your question with preamble or background for up to 3 minutes. If you've registered to make a statement, when I invite you, you or your representative must state your name and suburb, and then make your statement without taking longer than 3 minutes. If you've submitted a second question or indicated that you have a second statement, it may, at my discretion, be deferred until all other persons who have submitted questions have asked their first one, or it might not be asked if time doesn't permit. A maximum of 3 questions will be heard on any one subject, and then we'll proceed to the next topic. If time allows, we'll return back to the previous topic. So I will either answer the question on behalf of council, or I'll invite another councillor to answer. Alternatively, I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer to provide a response or to refer it to another council officer. There'll be no response or discussion in relation to community statements. As per the governance rules, questions or statements may be disallowed if they're defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant, trivial, or objectionable in language or substance. If a response to your question is provided at tonight's meeting, there'll be no further formal response, but Council will action any commitments made in answering the question. So with that, question time will begin at 7:18. So first up is on item 7.2, moving around Merri-bek, draft transport strategy for consultation. And I believe we've got Kate Hall, who is here in person, and she's asking a question. Okay. Unmuted? Is it on green? Red, so press it to green?
There we go.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Kate Hall from Coburg North, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Safer Walking and Riding for Murray Road group, and as Volunteer of the Year. Thank you, councillors. My question relates to item 7.2, the draft transport strategy. As reported in the Herald Sun, there were 8 serious crashes in just one block of Murray Road in the first half of 2023. My question relates to collaboration with council on this urgent matter. For background, in 2011, Vic Roads added extra lanes to Merri Road without consulting council. At the time, council wrote to Vic Roads that this was a bad move, including because the stretch is a priority bicycle route and was earmarked for bike lanes due to the dire lack of an east-west route. Vic Roads correspondence from 2015 states council was working with them to revisit the line markings, but Murray Road appears to have just fallen off the radar since then. In August, our group conducted the Murray Road Community Survey, and we have produced a comprehensive survey report which has now been shared with councillors and mayor and councillors and the transport team. There were 355 respondents, locals who walk and ride on Murray Road. Their children are mainly attending Coburg High, Merri-bek Children's Centre and Newlands Primary School. 124 respondents gave written accounts of safety incidents. To improve safety, the top 4 general changes wanted were a wider footpath, separated bike path, 81% wanted that, so that's relevant to several items being discussed tonight, 81%. Safer crossings and intersections, 79% wanted, and reduced speed limit was 61%. Highlighting the community corridor aspect of Murray Road, a massive 77% are walking or riding Murray Road to access Pentridge, but the second highest was people accessing Preston Market at the other end, that was 52%. Murray Road is also being used by people walking and riding to get to central Coburg facilities. With reference to the draft transport strategy, a stated value is inclusion, with the number 1 objective being to work collaboratively with our community and stakeholders to improve our transport system. Swarm welcomes the opportunity to collaborate, and why wait? How about using us as a test example? We applaud the proposal also in the strategy for a transparent and objective decision-making process for selecting street upgrades based on identifying and analysing corridors of movement, like Murray Road. Thanks to community effort, the department is currently working on a Murray Road review, plus we have the survey report data from our survey. So a lot of work has been done. My question is, how will council collaborate with our community group, the department and state government to bring about much needed safety and amenity improvements for walking and riding on Murray Road?
Thank you, Kate. Anita, if you're able to answer that.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, thank you, Kate, for your question. And thank you for the work that you've done gathering input from the community. We really appreciate you providing that report to us. Council will continue advocating to the state government and the Department of Transport and Planning in particular to improve safety on Murray Road, which is an arterial road under state government jurisdiction. As part of our advocacy, we're undertaking pedestrian and cyclist counts and vehicle speed and volume profiles at the intersections of Murray Road and Newlands Road and the pedestrian operated signal crossing towards the eastern end of the Coburg swimming pool site. And we're also undertaking a broader study on pedestrian crashes on arterial roads to further our advocacy to the state government for improving road safety, which will also include analysis of Murray Road in particular. So we'll work closely with DTP on any future review of Murray Road and continue to advocate for improved pedestrian and cyclist safety outcomes along the corridor, and be really keen to work with you and the community group in doing that as well.
Thanks, we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. So next up, we've got Brent Horton, who is the principal of Coburg High, who's joining us online with a question.
Good evening, councillors.
Oh,
My apologies.
hello. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Oh, there we go. Hi, Brent.
Good evening, councillors. My question relates to a safety issue at the entrance to Coburg High School. Councillors may recall December meeting last year, you heard from our school captain, Josh, who's actually just graduating from Year 12 at the moment. He spoke to you about the entrance to our school and the fact that it's got a very unsafe crossing at the front of the school. And council actually passed an urgent motion to try and improve that crossing. Just wondering if council can provide an update on this matter to our school community. We have 1,250 students who use this entrance to the school on a daily basis, and obviously it's something we would like to see improved rapidly. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Brent. Anita, if you're able to provide that detail.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. And thank you, Brent, for your question. So council has engaged contractors to design the Wombat crossing at the entrance of the high school from Urquhart Street. The Wombat crossing would allow pedestrians and cyclists priority to cross the road, and it's a strategic connection between O'Hay Street bicycle path and the Merri Creek Trail. So we expect those designs to be completed in the coming months, and we'll seek feedback from Coburg High School early next year. So we'll be in touch with you then.
Excellent. Thank you. So next we've got item 7.3, which is making it easier to walk and ride in Merri-bek, options for indexation of per capita spending on active transport. And we've got Andrea Bunting here with a statement in person.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Andrea Bunting, Brunswick. Walk on Merri-bek, and this is a statement. So, we support Councillor Pulford's June 2023 proposal on increasing the $10 per head minimum spend on active transport infrastructure each year in line with inflation. This would be a more satisfactory, fairer and long-term solution to active transport expenditure compared with the officer recommended one-off increase to $12 per head. So we believe expenditure on active transport needs to keep pace with the growth in council rates revenue. So council's rate revenue increases each year mainly due to two factors. One is the rate cap, of course, which is tied to inflation, and the other is the growth in the number of properties, which is roughly the same as the growth in population. So this year, council rate revenue increased by 4.8% due to the 3.5% rate cap and the 1.3% growth in property numbers. We ask that the minimum spend on active transport be increased each year so that it remains the same proportion of council rate revenue. In 2019, councillors voted for a minimum spend of $10 per head on active transport infrastructure, but population has actually declined, while council rate revenue has increased significantly. So active transport minimum spend as a proportion of council rates has dropped. We're going backwards. So the council officer's proposal to increase it to $12 head just takes us back to where we were in 2019. We're playing catch up. We're proposing that to avoid falling behind and then having to catch up, that you change the formula so that we do keep up. So we argue active transport infrastructure should be increased each year by two factors, the same way council rate revenue is increased. So a growth factor for population or property numbers and an inflation factor, which could be CPI or the rate cap. Of course, there is another factor in rate revenue, which is the total land value, but those two that I've mentioned are the main contributors. Property numbers and CPI or the rate cap. So we often see councillors identifying particular locations that need expenditure, and we have an item tonight on pedestrian lights in Fawkner, and these are great ideas, very important, but unless there's a sufficient budget, another equally important project will get delayed.
Thanks,
Active
Andrea. Last
transport
sentence.
is more bang for your buck. You get a $10 benefit for every dollar spent. It will help deal with the climate crisis, the health crisis, the social connection crisis, the vehicle congestion crisis, and the parking crisis. Please help keep expenditure keep up.
Thanks,
Long
Andrea.
sentence. Thanks.
Thanks. So next up, we've got item 7.4, and that is the Rainbow Tick accreditation, requirements, priorities, phasing, and costs for council services and programs. And we've got Sean Mulcahy here in person with a statement.
Hello, councillors. My name is Sean Mulcahy. I'm speaking on behalf of the Victorian Pride Lobby's Rainbow Local Government campaign. Rainbow Local Government is a statewide campaign that supports LGBTIQA+ inclusion in our local governments. In relation to agenda item 7.4, we support the officer's recommendation. However, in our discussions with councillors, we understand an alternate proposal is being considered, which we think offers a fair choice on how this expenditure would best be allocated to meet the objectives of Council's LGBTIQA+ action plan. However, we want to raise 2 points that we think need to be addressed. First, at the 8th of February 2017 meeting, Council advised that Council's aquatic and leisure facilities were subject to initial discussions and review in relation to becoming accredited with the Rainbow Tick. So therefore, we ask that councillors, during this item, ask officers where Council's aquatic and leisure facilities are up to in terms of Rainbow Tick accreditation and why that's not included in this recommendation. Second, we believe it's important that Council's LGBTIQA+ reference group guide the direction of expenditure in this area, as they're the local experts and they should be empowered to guide decisions on issues that affect them. Therefore, we ask that councillors insert an additional point in this item to actively seek input from the LGBTIQA+ reference group to develop a budget and implementation plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So next we've got item 7.17, the adoption of Council's Governance Rules 2023, with Marion Atwater here. Just unmute yourself, sorry. Yes, Sue.
He just was speaking, asked a question about where the aquatic centres are up to in terms of Rainbow Tick.
Eamon, do you have that information handy, or that might need to be on notice?
Well, it's better.
All right, okay, I don't need the back and forth. I'm just seeing if Eamon has the answer now, and if he
Thank you,
doesn't, we'll
Mayor.
take it on notice.
So the YMCA, who manage council's aquatic contracts, do a lot of good things in supporting LGBTIQA+ community. To our knowledge, they're not progressing Rainbow Tick at this stage, but we're very happy to raise that with them. We didn't include it in our recommendations because we're looking at how we scale our service.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Eamon. Thanks. Okay, sorry, so now we've got yourself, Marion, with a question on item 7.17.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Marion Atwater. I'm from Pascoe Vale. My question about the governance rules review. So at the October Planning and Related Matters meeting, there was an example of Governance Rule 3.9.12, sub point 2, which is the rule whereby a councillor is required to request an extension to speaking time during debate. And that rule was used for the first time since the governance rules came into effect on the 1st of September 2020, which is over 3 years ago. So and my question is that rule, if this rule has been so distasteful to councillors, then why hasn't it ever been proposed to delete this rule 3.9.12.2?
Thanks, Marion. Sue, are you able to answer that?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mayor. Thank you, Marion, for the question. So we're unaware of any distaste or discomfort for that provision in the governance rules. The speaking times proposed in the governance rules and rules relating to the extension of those speaking times are designed to help facilitate the orderly conduct of the debate during the meeting. Thanks, Marion.
Thanks. And you've got your next question, which is on item 7.18, the Year 3 Council Action Plan 2023 to 24, first quarter performance report. Thanks.
Thank you. So, the first quarter performance report. The actions related to transport, which are on pages 442 and page 443 of the agenda. This report gives very little detail compared to what is in the annual budget, which has 4 to 5 pages of road reconstruction and transport projects. The Kent Road bike lane trial is not even mentioned under action 167, which is to deliver the active travel capital works program, nor is the Northumberland Road bike lane making that permanent. Action number 18 clearly states that it is to review and update the integrated transport strategy, whereas elsewhere in tonight's agenda, in report 7.2, which is the draft transport strategy, the Council resolution of 14th of April 2021 has been incorrectly transposed with parts of the officer recommendations instead of the final amended resolutions. So, for example, report 7.2 claims that Council resolved to fully revise the transport strategy and to allocate $60,000 to $80,000 of funding towards it. This is incorrect. These things were removed in the final resolution. This quarterly performance report is an example of the Council contract for corporate planning, audit, risk and performance management systems that was awarded at the 10th of February 2021 Council meeting. That's a $940,000 contract over 8 years. It was supposed to upgrade the reporting, and the quarterly performance report is reporting to the municipal community on the Council plan. So the quarterly performance reports during previous terms of Council used to contain far more detail than what happens now. So my question is, will councillors do a review of that contract, RFT 2020-134, because it is plainly obvious that the level of reporting has diminished?
Thanks, Marion. Sue, are you able to address that as well, please?
Through the Mayor. So the first quarter performance report aligns with the budget and is one source of updates for progress on Council action plan items. Council also provides updates on projects, for example, and more information on projects through Conversations Merri-bek. We also provide more detailed reporting, including financial reporting on projects, and that's provided through relevant Council reports. So, relating to the topics that you have mentioned, Marion, I do acknowledge and do apologise for the errors that you mentioned for report 7.2 in regards to the draft transport strategy. For example, you mentioned where the resolution from the 14th of April wasn't correctly reflected in the officer's report. And on the last part of your question relating to the contract, there is no need to review that contract for corporate reporting software, as per your suggestion, as this system does meet our needs. Thanks, Marion.
Great, thanks. Marion, you can feel free to stay in here because we've got Dino Albano with two questions on item 7.21 governance report, November 2023 cyclical report, and you're his representative, so you can ask your two questions.
Thank you. So, Dino Albano from Brunswick, and I'm his representative. The questions are about the governance report, which is item 7.21. Recommendations 5 and 6 are to register the East Timor Partnership Project as a fundraiser with Consumer Affairs Victoria. I can point out that Port Phillip Council registered their East Timor project in 2017, and Council's own East Timor Partnership Project has been doing fundraising for many years. So Dino's question for Council is, were you aware of the requirement to register as a fundraiser? And if not, why not?
Thanks, Marion. On behalf of Dino, who wasn't able to make it, Eamon, are you please able to answer that?
Thanks, Marion and Dino, for the question. So yes, that's correct. We should have been registered as a fundraiser. And as soon as we became aware of this, we took action to remedy the situation, hence the report that's coming to Council tonight.
Okay, thank you. I think that took 5 months. And his second question is that the council budget does not mention the East Timor Partnership Project. So can you please advise how much funding has been allocated to this project in the current budget and in the previous two budgets?
Thanks. Eamon?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Marion and Dino. So council allocates 71,000 in, and that's the allocation in this year's budget. That figure has been pretty much the same for previous years, give or take CPI. Hume City Council also allocate a similar amount to support the partnership.
So it's 71 plus 71. That means altogether is allocated to it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Marion, and Dino, of course. So next up, we're up to notices of motion 8.2, the war in Gaza. So first, we have a statement from Jordana Silverstein, who I believe is here in person.
Hi. I'm Jordana Silverstein and I live in Brunswick. Cool. I speak as someone who has lived in Merri-bek on unceded Wurundjeri land for most of the last 17 years and who is Jewish. My Jewishness is central to who I am, and my Jewishness is built around values like solidarity, justice and love. It is these values that bring me to want to speak in support of the motion put forward by Councillor Sue Bolton. What Israel is doing right now to Palestine is devastating. I'm devastated. Like many of you, I imagine, I've had a permanent headache and nausea for weeks now. A month, we're at, over a month. The violence is overwhelming, beyond what our English language can deal with. We are, I hope you all are, seeing the images and stories that are coming out of Gaza. But not only Gaza, from across the West Bank and from what is called Israel, or the middle section of Palestine. And so the question becomes, what can we do about it? What over here in Merri-bek can be helpful or useful to Palestinians everywhere? All levels of government have stood against the oppression of Israelis. How do we ensure that we as people are also standing equally and more significantly against the oppression of Palestinians? How do we say to Palestinians in our community that we support them and have their backs, and will advocate with all of our beings alongside them for a ceasefire and then for the substantial peace and freedom that must come after? How do we say to Palestinians in Gaza and elsewhere in Palestine that we support them, that we have not forgotten them, that we will also share the horror of what is happening to civilians, and to all people, and that we will continue to do whatever we can? There are many ways in which I think, and I say this as a Jew, of course, as a non-Palestinian, so my thoughts are significantly less relevant than Palestinians. But there are many ways in which we can say this. In our words, by repeatedly and loudly telling the truth about what is happening, by recognising the losses and devastations that Palestinians everywhere are experiencing, by accurately using terms like genocide and war crimes, and correctly identifying the length of the problem, that it did not begin on October 7th, that it is more than 75 years old. And we must also use all other tools at our disposal. Raising the Palestinian flag tells Palestinians that we know that this is a flag of justice and anti-racism and solidarity, and that we are proud to be alongside Palestinians. Seeing it flying will make all of us safer. Participating in the BDS campaign, which is a civil society-led campaign with incredibly broad, almost universal support from Palestinians, is a step we can collectively take to try to place financial pressure on the businesses which profit from Israeli-led war. And writing to the government demonstrates to them that Merri-bek supports Palestinian rights, supports a ceasefire, supports the lifting of the 16-year-long siege. Gaza is starving, it is being decimated, and it is Israel who is responsible for these actions. We must together stand up and say that this is not okay. And so these are the bare minimum of things that we collectively can do. As a committed Jew, as a resident of Merri-bek, I ask you all to support this motion.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to come in. Next up, we've got Catherine Wabe, who I believe is here in person with a statement. Catherine Wabe, if you're here in person, there we go. Yep. Thanks.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts and feelings with you all tonight. I'm a Palestinian Australian and I've lived in Brunswick for the last 6 years with my partner and 2 young children. I feel so lucky to be part of our open-minded and compassionate community. Tonight, I'd like to share with you my personal feelings about being a Palestinian Australian over the last few weeks. So, how am I feeling? I feel abandoned and alone. I feel abandoned by the Australian government. Through its inaction and complicity with Israel, they're telling us that Palestinian lives don't matter, that international laws don't apply to us. It's clear that Israel is committing a genocide against my people. Israel is violating countless international laws and thousands of civilians and children are dying. I don't need to state the numbers or facts. It's on our screens for all to see. And yet our government is choosing to stand by Israel no matter what it does. They chose to abstain from a UN resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian truce in Gaza. They chose to light up public buildings in white and blue for 1,400 Israeli lives, but won't do the same for 10,000 Palestinian lives. I feel fear. Fear for the lives of people in Palestine, especially in Gaza. Fear for the future. Fear of losing my faith in humanity. Fear of wearing my keffiyeh, that I might be abused or vilified. I feel helpless to help my people back home, to convince the Australian government that Palestinian lives matter. I feel guilty for having all these feelings when people in Palestine are going through such horrors while I live in safety, unable to help them. Guilty for every drop of water that goes down the shower drain. Guilty when I tuck my children into their safe beds for the night. I feel solidarity with the local Palestinian community who have come together at this time to support one another, with all the people who show up at the rallies, with the Jewish people who say, "Not in my name," and with Indigenous Australians who have always stood with Palestinians in our resistance and who continue to do so selflessly even whilst grieving the racist no vote. Sovereignty has never been ceded. I feel rage at the injustice taking place, conflated by the fact that our government thinks this is acceptable, that this is okay, that the slaughter of thousands of civilians is justified, that this constitutes self-defence. The moral depravity of this thinking enrages me. I feel so much rage at Australia's and the Western world's hypocrisy and inaction that I'm not left much space for grief and pain. I'd like to thank you for this motion and thank you for your humanity and allowing our community to feel seen, heard and valued.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come in. Thanks. Next we've got Zain Elakluk, who I believe is here in person with the statement.
Hello, my name is Zain from Coburg. I'm here to express my support for motion 8.2. Mayor and councillors, I've come from work today. I'm a public servant like you. I work in climate policy, and the values that drive me to do my job are the same values that bring me here today to support this motion. More importantly, I'm Palestinian from the Gaza Strip. My dad is originally from there. My mother's side were driven away from there by Zionist militias in '48. It would take me more time than I've got allocated to explain how I've come to call this place my second home. But all this is really to say that I've got a deep connection to what's happening in Gaza at the moment. And as a result, over the last month, I've felt a real deep sense of grief. Grief for my home country, grief for my family that are now scattered in South Gaza, unable to meet their basic needs. I'm falling behind at work, at uni. I can't even laugh without feeling guilty. And I don't say this to get your pity. I don't really want your pity, but I am asking for your solidarity. I want you to think for a moment what it's like to see a genocidal assault on your people, on your family, to see them displaced and massacred yet again by the Israeli settler colony, and then to see yet again Israel has the support of our media and our elected representatives. It leaves us feeling incredibly dehumanized and alienated from this country. And I can't help but wonder, what more does Israel have to do to deserve condemnation? How many more Palestinians need to be slaughtered for the world to say enough? And how different would this narrative be if we were white Europeans? We're tired of hearing the same talking points about issues on both sides, about condemning Hamas, or about how this is a complicated or nuanced issue. Mayor and councillors, it's not complicated, it's really simple. Israel holds significant power. It acts on another population with total impunity, and it has for 75 years. It's been credibly accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity, and yet it is never held to account. Taking a stance through this motion isn't being biased. I reject the notion that being biased means you have to pretend each side is equal. In my mind, being unbiased means basing your opinion on the facts, even if the facts condemn one side as utterly reprehensible. And that's why I don't think this motion should be controversial. All it does is recognize the situation, it condemns those that are responsible, and it calls on our government to support a political solution. It also offers a symbolic gesture of solidarity through raising the Palestinian flag, reminding us that even if the world doesn't recognize our humanity, at least our community does. Mayor and Councillor, as we speak, there's a global, multi-racial, multi-faith popular movement for justice in solidarity with Palestine. I hope you find the courage and the compassion to join this movement and pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your statement. So councillors just need someone to move for an extension of time. So Councillor Conlon to move, Councillor Riley to second. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thanks, councillors. So finally, we've got David Glanz, who is here in person with a statement.
Thank you, Council. I am David Glanz. I live in Hadfield. I've lived in Merri-bek for about 34 years, and I too, like Geordie, who spoke previously, I too am Jewish, and I'm here to speak in favour of the resolution. I don't think anyone on Council will fail to understand the horror that is taking place at the moment. It's not just the 10,000 dead so far. It's not just the destruction. It's not just the dropping of white phosphorus, which burns through people's skins. It's not just the turning off of power and water and the internet. It's not just the bombing of hospitals and mosques and schools. We are witnessing what is probably going to be seen in history as Nakba 2, the second catastrophe, the second attempt by Israel to ethnically cleanse, in the past hundreds of thousands, today millions of Palestinians from land that Israel wishes to control. I think all of you can probably agree with at least some of what I'm saying, but there will be a voice in the back of some people's heads saying, but if we criticise Israel, I might be an anti-Semite, because that is the message that Israel wishes to give. And I'm here in person, as Geordie was before, to say that what is happening is not happening in my name as a Jew, and around the world there are massive numbers, still a minority in the Jewish community, but massive numbers of Jews who are coming out onto the streets with the same message. In Australia, here in Melbourne, in Britain, across the world, and above all in the United States, where an entire generation of young Jewish people are saying, not in my name. We can no longer stand by for and watch oppression and racism and ethnic cleansing take place. So I ask you to put that voice of doubt to one side and to understand that it is not anti-Semitic to condemn ethnic cleansing. It is not anti-Semitic to condemn the bombing of children and women. It is not anti-Semitic to condemn the bombing of hospitals. It is not anti-Semitic to fly the Palestinian flag, and I look forward to seeing that flag flying in my council area, my municipality, and encouraging councils around Melbourne and around Australia to do the same. Bankstown Council in Sydney has led the way. Merri-bek should proudly lead the way in Victoria. So I ask you, you can only take a side here between what is right and what is wrong, between ethnic cleansing and genocide, or between justice and the fight for liberation. I ask you to support the motion.
Thank you, David. So that's it in terms of question time then for this evening, as we do have quite a full agenda. So that will conclude it at, what time is it? 7:53 p.m. And we'll go straight into our council reports and with the altered order of the agenda that we approved. So first up is item 8.2, the notice of motion on the war in Gaza. Are there any conflicts of interest to disclose? If not, Councillor Bolton, it's your motion, and I'll see if there is a seconder. Councillor Conlon, and just remember to unmute yourself. And we'll just make sure that the right motion's up on the screen. We'll scroll down in a sec to
fiddled with is that
dot point 10. All right, we'll make sure that we scroll down and get the right wording up on the screen. All right, Councillor Bolton, and Councillor Conlon, can I confirm that those are what?
Just one.
No.
Little bit about reviewing after 6 months.
Yep, so Councillor Bolton, I believe there was also a bit that Councillor Tapanos had proposed, a particular line.
Oh, yeah, there should be a point 11. Oh,
Yep.
actually, yeah.
So we'll
there
just
was a
make sure
point
that's in
11.
there. There's been some amendments going around, so we want to make sure that we're debating and moving the right thing.
Flag and the fourth flag poll account for 6 months. One tick.
Yep. I think that's right. Yes.
The only bit.
Councillor
Anyway.
Conlon?
It just should have an extra sentence.
Which?
It should technically, I mean, it should say that after the 6 months that it comes back to council for a decision.
Review.
Just so we can sort of,
Oh.
I guess, monitor the
Okay.
situation.
Will be reviewed by council.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, already, that's fun.
So,
Okay.
by council after the word reviewed. Great. Okay. Councillor Bolton is the mover. You've got 3 minutes. Yes.
One moment, please.
Sorry, what was that?
If you could please point us. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
If you could please direct those online to which, because there's been so many circulated today, which one specifically are we talking about so that we can follow which recommendation?
It's the motion on war on Gaza.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it's been
Point 10, just point 10 of that motion. Nothing else has been altered. And the addition of a point 11, which is about Merri-bek Council deploring Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. Those words were circulated by Councillor Tapanos.
Okay, do we have a full version of that?
Do you want me to read it out?
No, there's like 11 of them. That's on.
It's on the screen? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Bolton,
Okay,
you've got your
alrighty.
3 minutes. Thanks.
So some people have asked why I've moved this motion. Some people say it's not council business to have a position on an issue like what's going on in Gaza at the moment. But I think it's not surprising that I've moved this motion, and not surprising that there's so much community action, community anger and community emotion, because what we're seeing is a genocide happening in front of the world's eyes. And there is plenty of precedence for local governments taking up issues, all sorts of issues. I'm sure during the Second World War there would have been motions by local governments. Certainly there have been around East Timor crisis when the Indonesian military was massacring the East Timorese. There have been other examples of councils taking positions on issues. And in the case of East Timor, the majority of councils across Victoria and across Australia developed friendship with East Timorese towns and villages as a result of that campaign. So, and as one of the speakers pointed out, there was no big outcry from the mainstream media and the politicians about the lighting up of the Israeli flag, but suddenly there is about a councillor or councillors daring to move a motion condemning a genocide happening before our eyes. Just last year, in 2022, at the ALGA conference, which is a conference of all local governments, 1,000 councillors passed the motion unanimously, basically condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, that included councillors from the Liberal Party, right-wing independents, Labor, Greens. It included some councillors here tonight who I'm sure will stand up in a moment and say that councillors should stick to roads, rates and rubbish and not think about issues like this. But at the moment, if you're looking at Gaza, how much killing are we prepared to accept? There's over 10,000 people being killed. Probably the number's way more than that because all the people under the rubble are not counted. Over 4,000 kids are being killed. That's an underestimation because of all the kids underneath the rubble. How much killing are we prepared to accept before the world forces Israel to stop? Even if the bombing stopped tomorrow, Gaza is a disaster zone. 50%, maybe more, housing has been destroyed. If this was an earthquake that had caused this much death and destruction, aid would be flowing in from absolutely everywhere. And for the people experiencing the incessant bombing, it's like an earthquake happening every day.
Councillor Bolton, last sentence, please.
So really this motion is very simple, calling for an immediate ceasefire now. This is the minimum we should be expecting from any of our politicians to call for an immediate lifting of the siege, stop the starvation of people in Gaza, unlimited supplies of everything that's needed for life into Gaza, and the solidarity of flying the Palestinian flag, but also for council contracts with Israeli companies that support the Israeli military to be cancelled, such as the Monday.org contract.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. And I'll just remind councillors to please try and keep to time. I understand there's so much passion and a lot to say on this, but we do have a full agenda. Councillor Conlon as the seconder.
So first I want to just thank everyone for coming out to this rally tonight. It's an amazing show of support, and yeah, I think it's going to send a really strong message to politicians, especially our local member Peter Khalil. So yeah, thank you, and also thank you to the speakers tonight who've really clearly articulated the issue. So thank you for coming and sharing that with us. Look, I'm beyond words to describe this. You've all described it. It's a horrific daily thing. I want to watch the news to desperately hope that something has changed, but it doesn't. And yeah, but I also, it's repulsive, basically. And every time I do watch the news, I'm disturbed, repulsed, and overtaken with a sense of grief for all the horrific violence, for the thousands of children that are being deliberately butchered. What we are witnessing in Gaza is a genocide. Article 2 of the Geneva Convention outlines 6 conditions which constitute a genocide. Israel have clearly breached 4 of those. We can take the evidence, the systematic evidence collected by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and other global organisations that have, we can see it on the television as well. 800 scholars around the world have signed a statement saying that this is genocide. We don't even need to look at these statements. We can look at the statements of the Israeli government themselves, who have said things like this. Nassim Vaturi from one of the governing parties said their plan is to erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. Those who are unable will be replaced. Defence Minister Yoav Gallant said, "We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza, no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we act accordingly." If you take the words of Israeli government ministers, the evidence and the words of international experts, it's abundantly clear that what we're seeing is a genocide. Genocide is not too complex to understand, as every politician in the whole media, especially the ABC, continues to regurgitate. I'm sick of politicians, the media, and everyone sucked into the unhinged public discourse on this issue who obsessively focus on the horrific war crimes committed by Hamas on October 7. Everybody condemns that. We consistently condemn it every single day on every interview on TV. Everyone condemns that. It is horrific. It is a war crime in and of itself. Every Palestinian rally I've been to condemns this as well. But the purpose of this obsessive focus on that is to distract from the root causes of this current violence. Israel is a settler colonial state which has a clear and unhidden agenda outlined in government and army policy documents, which is to extinguish Palestinians from their land for full Israeli control. Israel continues to implement this plan every day with their illegal settlements, or colonies really, in the West Bank, which involves the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, arming settlers with guns to take homes and land of Palestinians, plus the illegal demolition of their homes. This is colonial violence is extended to Gaza in the form of Israel's illegal economic, military and political siege of Gaza, which includes, amongst other horrific measures, daily calorific intake for people of Gaza. How sickening is that? The Israeli military makes a daily calculation of how much food to let into Gaza. It is in this context, ongoing violent status quo imposed by the State of Israel and
Councillor
backed by
Conlon, last
Western
sentence,
powers
please.
like Australia that breeds violence. Violence breeds violence. And unless we start to talk openly about the root causes of this genocide, Israel will continue to commit further atrocities when Palestinians inevitably resist the brutal and illegal occupation.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. So I'll see if we've got a speaker against this motion. Councillor Tapanos?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. And can I begin by expressing my sorrow, and I know how hard it is for everyone, myself included, looking at these images and the loss of life that we see in Israel and Gaza. I know the current war has also created a lot of fear, distress and suffering for those that are directly affected, but also for our Jewish and Palestinian and Muslim communities here in Merri-bek who have family members and friends back home who are directly impacted. As someone who has travelled extensively throughout the Middle East, I know that this conflict has many levels of complexity, and we don't need to take a side here tonight. Australia's response should be left to the federal government, not Merri-bek Council. They are best placed to understand the situation, not councillors here who I believe, apart from myself, have never visited the region, and I actually believe have very limited knowledge of the conflict. The motion before us tonight is problematic, it's one-sided, and it's very divisive. It should not be supported. It does not mention the background to the war, the horrific acts of terrorism in which 1,400 Israeli citizens, and indeed many citizens of other nations were killed, injured and taken hostages.
Point of order. It does
Councillor Tapanos?
item one of the motion clearly condemns the loss of life on both sides.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Tapanos?
Look, I'm not going to respond to that. I didn't interrupt Councillor Conlon,
All right,
who
Councillor
mentioned
Tapanos,
many
just
things
get
that were
back,
incorrect.
just get
I'll
back
just
to what you want to
continue.
say, please.
But just to say that we as a council should be condemning all acts of violence against civilians. We are a diverse, multicultural and multi-faith community, and we need to stand against all forms of racism, including Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, this motion here tonight is people playing politics. It's not going to achieve anything. It's not going to be listened to by the federal government. It's not going to stop the war. What it will do is make some people in our community feel very unsafe. What it will do is put back all of our efforts around creating a harmonious harmony in our community. We don't need to take a side. We don't need to be on the front pages of the paper tomorrow. I know that's what some councillors want. I don't think our council and our community needs to put itself in that position. We need to allow this issue, which is very traumatic for a lot of people, to actually be dealt with by the authority that is responsible, and that's the Australian government.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. I'll see now if there's a speaker in favour of the motion. Councillor Pulford?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bolton, for moving this notice of motion tonight. Just to respond to some of the points made just then, if we want the Australian government to change its position, we need to get some more headlines. We need to get some more pressure on them. So right now, the world is watching as the Israeli government commits war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. We're witnessing destruction, catastrophe and death perpetrated by the Israeli government in response to terrorist attacks by Hamas into Israel that killed over 1,400 Israelis a month ago on October 7th. There is no justification in attacks that deliberately target civilians, and that's been acknowledged extensively tonight. Since October 7, however, over 10,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed, over 4,000 of them children. Hospitals and medical services have been targeted, refugee camps, journalists, UN workers, civilian infrastructure. Gaza remains under siege with the essentials for life largely blocked from entering. This isn't self-defense by the Israeli government, this is a collective punishment of the people of Gaza, and this has to stop. Yet while this has been happening, ours and many foreign governments are not just watching, they're actively supporting and equipping the Israeli government. The Australian government must call for an immediate ceasefire and the lifting of the siege in Gaza and the freeing of all hostages. As we heard tonight, this situation didn't just start a month ago. So the Australian government must support peace and freedom for Palestinians and Israelis and an end to the occupation of Palestinian territories. This motion proposes Council writes to the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister calling on the Australian government for these. More headlines will help put pressure on ministers and the government to do the right thing. But this motion also makes clear that Council is standing in solidarity with community members whose own lives, own families and friends are being affected by this situation. People who are here tonight who are deeply feeling and living this atrocity, who are feeling it in their bones and in their hearts and in their bodies and in their minds, as people have said today, having constant headaches. This issue clearly touches the lives of many in our community, from the people sitting in the gallery, from the people who attended the rally, from all of the emails we got from community members asking us to support this motion tonight, which vastly outnumbered any concerns about this motion. So some people have said that we should stay out of this business, this issue, that this isn't our business, but council is where our community comes together. Representing and reflecting our community is our business. We also have a responsibility as people and representatives to stand in solidarity with those whose lives and rights are under attack, wherever they are in the world, and no matter their race or religion. Over the last month, there's been an uprising of grassroots support across the world for an end to the attacks on Gaza and for a free Palestine more broadly. This is everyday people, this is you guys, coming together to challenge the existing power structures, to push their representatives and governments to act for peace and to create a better world together. This is how change is made. Yes, this council resolution won't solve the situation. I don't think anyone would think that, but I believe what we're seeing is part of a global shift on this issue. By passing this motion, we're supporting and playing our part in helping to grow this grassroots movement for peace and a better world.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. I'll see if there are any other speakers against this motion. Councillor Yildiz.
Can I begin by saying that it's absolutely gut-wrenching what's going on in the Middle East. We cannot fathom the waste of life, and it's sad and horrific to watch. However, we were not voted to campaign on international issues. We are all no doubt shocked, as I mentioned. Councillors should use other platforms to raise social issues. Attending pro-Palestinian rallies, great. Voice your concerns via social media. Talk to your friends and family, no issue. Debating the issue has no value for our ratepayers of this city. In fact, I've worked out the cost of this motion for ratepayers of this city in terms of the cost for council, police, security. It's about $15,000. Our motto is one community proudly diverse. This motion does not promote one community. This motion damages our image and our reputation. It doesn't promote harmony, and it does not promote diversity. Local residents are tired of councillors using their elected positions and their council to push their own political agenda, their own political ideologies. Our local residents voted for us to focus on local issues. We are not here for international affairs. We are not the United Nations. This yet again confirms that local councils should not be about party politics. It should not be about ideologies. It should not be about agendas. This motion, if anything, will cause anxiety, it'll cause fear. It's going to cause hatred and possibly bring back memories for those who have come from Gaza and or similar war-torn countries or situations. We all have different ways of dealing with such issues, and I think it would have been better for us to stay clear of this international issue. There are compelling local issues that we can control, we can influence and act on. It is harrowing to raise such issues. However, our ability at local government to influence is very minute. Residents are calling on us to focus on on local issues. I had one resident last night have a go at me saying, when was the last time you raised local council issues? Let me just say, when we have a local council issue, we contact our EA, who then contacts the director, who then goes through a process of dealing with issues. We've got bins. Residents are filling up their hard waste bins with recycled waste because they can't wait for the fortnightly collection. Our sporting grounds, our lighting facilities at sporting grounds, our childcare facilities, our hard waste, Mayor, our hard waste collection issues, our potholes. Residents are finding it stressful in paying rates, planning issues, street sweeper, trees dropping nuts all over our streets, grass is 45 centimetres long, parking issues. Yes, it is rates, roads, rubbish and services. Upgrading our shopping strips, overflowing bins in our shopping strips. In concluding, I notice how much time the others had. Before anyone labels me as racist, I've got a Turkish background and I'm proud of this. I'm proud of this. I empathise. Hey, excuse me. I empathise with your passion of protest. You can go ahead and do that peacefully, without intimidation, without threats, with respect. I commend you, no doubt, for coming here together, but my pattern of voting over the last 15 years is exactly the same as it will be tonight, and that is stay out of international affairs, vote and do what residents want me to do, and that is to focus on local issues.
Thanks, Councillor Yildiz. I'll see if there are any. I'll just remind people in the gallery to. Thank you. So I'll see if there are any other councillors who wish to speak in favour of this motion. Councillor Hart, just unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I know I can't ask you directly a question, Councillor Yildiz, but I wonder if you were the one of the councillors.
Just through the chair. Through the chair.
Sorry.
We've got to follow the rules.
Who voted at the Elgar conference in support of the Ukraine. A local government, Australia-wide, national conference. Because I understand that was a unanimous vote back in 2022. I believe you've always attended those conferences. And it seems to me, just listening to part of the debate, that the Israeli government, where it's been partly successful, that they've been conducting a recruitment campaign over the last month, a worldwide recruitment campaign to the narrative that this is self-defence, to the narrative that it's not genocide, to the narrative that it's not war crimes. And that narrative and that recruitment drive is really all about silencing opposition, silencing the Palestinian people, and silencing those who would stand with Palestine. And we know that what we have in Israel is one of the most extreme right-wing governments that we have ever probably seen in the history of Israel, who hold the balance of power and who aren't interested in a two-state solution and who are not interested in a one-state solution of justice and equity and equality. We know that. I'm reflecting back to the 1990s. We had two countries doing peace deals, big, long process. We had Ireland and we had Palestine and Israel. Ireland is at peace. They are still petitioned, but they have peace. While Palestine is seeing genocide on its doorstep. And I want to say, before I finish, that this debate about what is council business and what isn't, I can assure you that would never be happening in an Irish council, in an Irish country, because they have known repression, they have known and understood it, and the country is full of Palestinian flags. Even conservative politicians aren't game to stand up and say the things that I've heard at this council tonight. They would be just cast out by their own people. So what we've seen around the world is not government standing up, but we have seen people standing up. And that's what we have in this motion. That's what we've had outside the council tonight.
Thanks,
and
Councillor Hart.
That is what we need for Palestine.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Are there any other speakers against this motion? Councillor Davidson?
Thank you. As a local council, we have an obligation to improve the quality of life for residents by ensuring that we get the fundamental elements of council right, which is what has the biggest impacts on residents' day-to-day lives. From the footpaths we walk on to the parks we sit in and the athletic grounds we play on, the childcare we send our children to, and the services we provide for the well-being of our communities. This is our responsibility, and this is what we need to get right. International affairs, like the conflict in Israel and Palestine, is harrowing, and it's complex. It's a highly sensitive matter and involves complicated geopolitical and historic diplomatic factors that require expertise and resources beyond the scope of local governments and this local government. The federal government is the level of government that has the ability and the responsibility to engage in diplomatic efforts, negotiate peace agreements and promote conflict resolution. This is not what we at Merri-bek Council have been elected to do. During the council campaign in 2020, I didn't see any campaign material stating that a council was running on an international affairs campaign. None of us were elected on that platform of international affairs. By putting this motion forward, it becomes a divisive issue within our own community. It's spurred on by councillors who are meant to be doing the exact opposite by providing a safe place for people to live and work. I find the motion biased, and in supporting one side of this matter, it's isolating other people of our own community. We should prioritise our primary responsibilities by focusing on matters that we can make sure that our limited resources are used effectively on.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Are there any other speakers in favour of this motion? If not, I'd like to speak to this motion as well. So I'm proud to be here speaking in favour of this motion tonight. And as has been outlined, I haven't gotten to the end yet. As has been outlined, you know, what we're seeing unfolding before our eyes, it's deeply horrifying and traumatising. And so, you know, we're seeing what top human rights organisations are calling war crimes unfolding in real time. We go to bed and we're scrolling and we see live bombing. We wake up and we see craters where apartments and churches once stood. We see places where children were playing just the day before. We're seeing entire families being wiped out at once, and Save the Children refer to Gaza as a graveyard for children. We're also seeing Islamophobia and anti-Semitism on the rise across the world. Back in 2021, Israel was referred to as an apartheid state by Human Rights Watch, with the UN and Amnesty following soon after. So this conflict, as has been made clear, is nothing new. The systemic discrimination by the state of Israel against Palestinians is nothing new, and this conflict didn't just start on October 7. Of course, the events of October 7 are inexcusable, and no civilian should ever be targeted by anyone, and I condemn it in the strongest of terms, and I think that has also been made quite clear. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia have no place in our community. But to be clear, one atrocity doesn't justify another. At some point, our national leaders need to ask themselves the following: when does the right to defend yourself turn into killing 10,000 civilians? When does the right to defend yourself turn into bombing schools, hospitals and refugee camps? When does the right to defend yourself turn into using chemical weapons in war? To be clear, it is never, ever justified. And so I'm here as the Mayor of Merri-bek, proud to stand with our community, proud to stand with the hundreds of thousands of people who have been taking to the streets from Coburg to the CBD, calling for a ceasefire, for an end to the war crimes, and for an end to the occupation. I will not stand here in this position of power and privilege and abstain on such an important vote as Australia did recently regarding a UN motion that just called for a ceasefire, that just called for a pause in all of this. Nor will I pretend that this conflict has nothing to do with council business, because it does. We stand up for human rights issues, both locally and internationally, all the time. We write advocacy letters to the government all the time. We fly flags of importance on our flagpoles all the time. And we have firm rules in our procurement policy around other areas of importance, like companies involved with coal mines and refugee detention. I will not pretend that this is policy on the run or that I am not informed enough, because I have empathy and, in fact, actually have a degree in international relations. So we are the level of government that is closest to the people, and it is incumbent upon us to show our humanity and to act on behalf of the community who have been so resoundingly urging us to support this motion. So, to be clear, this motion is about us using our power as a local council to do what we can to further the calls for a ceasefire, for de-escalation, for peace and for human rights, and so I urge everyone here to please vote in favour of this motion tonight. Thanks. So, thanks everyone. I'll now see if there's any other speakers on this motion at all. If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Bolton, of course. You've got 2 minutes for your right of reply, and just unmute yourself. Thanks.
It's not too complex to say don't kill civilians. An average everyday worker who has no degrees, no higher education, no primary or secondary education at all understands you don't kill civilians. That's not a complex idea. You know, really the heart of this motion, I mean, it's got other bits in it as well, but the key elements are for immediate ceasefire and immediate lifting of the siege. How can you stand by and think it's acceptable to not allow food or water and medical supplies or fuel into peoples who are in a prison camp effectively because there's a huge wall around them? Like, I never thought even the most rotten leaders, political leaders, would accept that. I know they've accepted a lot of atrocities being carried out against people in Gaza, but to actually deny food, water, fuel and medical supplies, that is a new low for, you know, politicians. Like, I couldn't believe that that was how low they went. And no, not a single one of the major governments has called for a ceasefire or a lifting of the siege. Secondly, you know, how far are people prepared to go? Are we prepared to go as far as Rwanda, where over 400,000 people were killed? Are we prepared to go as far as Nazi Germany, of millions of people killed? How far are we prepared, is the world prepared to go to watch what's happening in Gaza? Peace is everybody's business. Councillors, workers, unemployed people, politicians, you know, religious figures. Peace is everybody's business, because the only way you achieve peace is through everybody actually fighting for peace.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Last sentence.
Is that it? Okay, all right,
Yeah.
Sorry. But, you know, this is a local issue along with other local issues, and we're all involved in fighting for social justice as in all sorts of domains, and this is an important one.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against is 4, so that is carried. Yeah, we'll get a division on that one. So we'll go, so all those in favour were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Hart, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Pulford. All those against were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Pavlidis and Councillor Tapanos. So, given the lengthy debate that we've just had on that item, I'll just move that we have a 10-minute adjournment and then we can resume with the rest of our items. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Riley to second. All those... All right, we can do 5. All right, Councillor Riley, you happy to second 5 minutes? All right, 5-minute adjournment. All those in favour? Great. We'll be back here at 8:33. I think that's the maths. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, councillors, and to those of you remaining in the gallery. We've just returned after our adjournment, and so we'll be heading into our 2 notices of rescission. And so the first one is 9.1, the conclusion of the Kent Road separated bike lane trial and next steps for Coburg to Glenroy bike route. I'll firstly see if there are any conflicts of interest to disclose. If not, I'll just firstly welcome Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon, who's just joined us online, and I'll see if I've got a mover for the rescission motion. Councillor Pavlidis to move. I'll see if she's got a seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor I saw Councillor Yildiz' hand, so Councillor Yildiz to second the rescission. Councillor Pavlidis.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I hope I don't freeze or cut out because it's been freezing when I'm hearing the rest of the councillors, so hopefully it works for me. Okay, so this notice of rescission is before us because I believe our community has spoken to us with respect to the bike lanes in Kent Road. I am of the view that we have not adequately listened to our community and have made a decision that is not in their best interest or the interest of the community that we serve. So, okay, I don't believe I can add or say anything further that hasn't already been said by some of my councillor colleagues, members of our community through the numerous phone calls, emails, the petitions, the attendance at council meetings and social media over the last 2.5 years. I acknowledge the bike lanes were installed as a trial during COVID-19 as one of 5 projects. All the other trials have been completed and made permanent. We have had several community consultations and made adjustments to the bike lane infrastructure following these consultations. However, what is evident is that this trial in Kent Road has not worked. As stated in the report, traffic volumes and behaviours that were expected to lessen over a 2-year trial have not, and less confident bike riders may be better served on an alternative route. I also acknowledge members of the bicycle users group tested the Pascoe Vale Shimmy route. This is what we want from our community. We want them to test the alternative route and provide feedback. So I therefore encourage councillors to support this rescission motion, to remove the bike infrastructure and consult the community on the alternative, Pascoe Vale Shimmy route, and the other alternatives that have been detailed in report 7.1 of the 3rd September council meeting.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. Councillor Yildiz is the seconder.
Yeah, look, I think residents are genuinely tired. They're sick and tired of this issue returning back to council. In particular, excuse me, I'll move back a bit. In particular, with the last rescission. Now, I've had a lady by the name of Olga email me, and we've had a number of emails from a number of concerned residents about this issue, and they continue to raise the same issues and to spend more time on this and to go over the same old issues again and again. It's clear to a lot of the residents that it is quite divided. This council is very divided, but after hearing what our officers had to say and seeing or reading their report, suggested to me that I was hoping that councillors would support it, and suggested to me that, hey, we were wrong, and we admit the fact that we were wrong, and I was hoping that we would have put this to bed in the last council meeting. Unfortunately, it's come back again this time, and I'm hoping that some of those councillors who may have voted in favour of, not in favour of removing them, I'm hoping they may have changed their minds. But again, that's up to each individual councillor. But stayed pretty consistent since they were installed, that they pose a risk. They pose a risk to health and safety, and it is our duty as councillors to serve our residents and in particular ensure their safety. And the number one thing that we tend to forget is that bike riders themselves are emailing us saying remove them, which is it's laughable because it's supposed to be a route for bike riders to use, and they're telling us that it's not safe.
Thank you, Councillor Yildiz. Are there any speakers against this rescission motion? Councillor Pulford?
Yes, look, I think we have debated this issue. This is the third meeting we've debated the issue. And as Councillor Yildiz said, he's remained consistent throughout it. I'm remained consistent throughout it as well. I support bike lanes here. I'm going to vote against this rescission motion. I think it's better to have protected bike lanes. They're good for our health, they're good for the climate, they're good for social connectedness. And I don't believe there are key safety issues on Kent Road. I believe there's perception of safety issues, but also just deep-seated opposition to the bike lanes. So, yes, anyway, I won't support this decision.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Are there any other speakers in favour of this rescission motion? Any? Oh, in favour? Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, and I'm just going to confine some very quick comments that really only are about the rescission motion itself, not about the motion that would be before the chamber if the rescission motion is passed. My reasons for supporting the rescission motion is because it's the second rescission motion. The first rescission motion, the rationale for that was that we needed all councillors present, that this has been an incredibly important issue for council, and that we needed to have all councillors present for that debate. At the last meeting, we didn't have all councillors present. I agree that we need all councillors present. I think I'm not going to quibble with that rationale for that rescission. There was a deferral that was voted against at the last meeting, so I'm voting for this rescission motion on the basis that it gives all councillors an opportunity to vote on this important motion, important issue. That's why I'm voting for the rescission motion.
Thanks, Councillor Hart. I'll see if there are any other speakers against this rescission motion. Councillor Conlon?
Yes. Just trying to get my head from one thing to the next. Yes, voting against this rescission motion, as I've said previously, I support protected bike lanes on Kent Road. I believe that separating cars and humans from moving traffic only makes those people safer. So the idea that that separation between cars and people somehow makes things more dangerous, I very strongly refute that, as do all road safety experts as well. I think, unfortunately, I'm not sure, I think the rescission is going to probably get up, in which case council looks like it will remove the bike lanes. I really hope that isn't the case, but it looks like that might be the case. Which is disappointing, but then, I suppose I'm really interested to see how the vote on the next item goes, to see where councils really sit when it comes to actually making our streets safer through protected bike lanes or other interventions that make the streets safer for people. So, I really hope that that gets through, because it will be hard to sort of believe the councillors that say that they are in support of vulnerable road users, but in theory, but then every time there's a project in front of us that it either gets delayed or more consultation or want another review or just flat out voted against. So I'm really hoping that we get some kind of progress on road safety through other items on the agenda.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. I'll see if there are any other speakers in favour. Just before we go to Councillor Davidson, Councillor Tapanos, can you hear me? I know you're having some audio issues.
Yes, I can.
All right.
Now I can, yes. Thank you.
Excellent, and we can hear you. Great. Okay. Councillor Davidson speaking in favour of the rescission motion.
Thank you. And as it has been vastly debated previously, I won't say too much, but I think it's good to point out, following from Councillor Conlon's remarks, that there are some circumstances where separated bike lanes will be appropriate, and there are some circumstances where they won't be. And we have a wealth of knowledge from our officers and our directors and all the people employed within Merri-bek in relation to what is appropriate for our particular roads, for the residents in the area, for the businesses in the area as well. And in this circumstance, as I've said on many occasions before, I am supportive of the officer recommendation, which says that separated bike lanes are not appropriate in this section of Pascoe Vale. And that's not to say that any other application that comes before us won't be taken on its merits. I think we all come to council with genuine intentions about wanting what's best for our community under the right circumstances. So I'll finish there, but I think we can move along from this after this motion has been put.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Are there any other speakers against this rescission? Councillor Bolton, just unmute yourself.
I'm speaking against the rescission motion, but, you know, I respect the right of people to move the rescission motion and vote for that, but I'm speaking against it. Partly this is the third time it's come to council. I mean, I also never really particularly thought the argument that was used to justify the previous rescission motion was necessarily a good argument. But I haven't been consistent. As people know, as other councillors and some members of the committee know, I took one position at the September council meeting and a different position at the October council meeting. And that was on the basis of more information and more understanding of the cycling routes that people take, and I just felt I had more information on which to base my decision, and that's the reason why I changed my vote at the October meeting, and that's why I supported the rescission motion, because I wanted to vote differently. But I sort of feel like, I mean, the community is divided. I mean, there are different viewpoints, and I also, you know, there are some validity on both sides, but I'm, you know, I will, you know, if the rescission motion gets voted up, I will, I would vote to keep protected bike lanes and not to get rid of them. And I know that will disappoint some people, but I feel that that is the right thing to do.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Are there any other speakers on this rescission motion at all? If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in... Oh, sorry, yes. Councillor Pavlidis, do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor. Just very briefly, so I'd like to thank councillors for their comments, but I feel I need to make a correction where Councillor Conlon said that, you know, we propose separated bike lanes, particular bike lanes, and we vote them down. If you listen to what I said earlier, Councillor Conlon, there were 5 of these trials, all the other 4 were implemented. I can name you, for example, Denline Road and Dawson Street. They protected them as separated bike lanes. So to turn around and say that council does not support is an outright lie. So I would appreciate the facts. And Councillor Pulford, I agree the environment is important. However, in my view, I think people, and the vulnerable ones at that, are more so. Nothing further.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this rescission motion? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against this rescission motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that rescission motion has been carried. Councillor Pavlidis, yep, we'll get a division on that one. So all those in favour of the rescission motion were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Hart, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Pavlidis, Councillor Carly Hannon and Councillor Tapanos. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Pulford. So now we need a motion to be moved. Councillor Pavlidis.
Documents have been circulated earlier. I think it's around about 5 something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we'll just confirm that, we'll just get that on the screen and then we'll make sure that that's the right one.
That should be approval and removal. 7th of March, yes.
Yep.
Keeps going. Part 4.
Can I, oh, just reading through it?
Yep, you can keep going.
Oh, you've got a question? Just give it a second. All right, Councillor Pavlidis, is that the one?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Just quickly, Councillor Hart's got a question. So, yeah, you're unmuted. Great.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's a question to the officers. Just a question in relation to the timeframes. I know that when the first treatment was taken up and put down, that was done through contract, or I know you had to do procurement. I just wanted to know, is that done externally or is it done in-house? Because I was just thinking of the timeframes, because because it's actually removing and not removing and then replacing. Does that still go out to tender or is that in-house? Because the timeframes before I think were 3 months, when this is like 4 months. So that's my question. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So the procurement process depends on the value of the works, and so if it's under $300,000, then we can go through a request for quotation, which is quicker than a tender process. We also have a panel of providers that we can call on for those quotes. So that we do need to use external resources to do this work. It's not work that we can do resource up internally, but we will be endeavouring to do it as quickly as possible. The reason for the extra month is really that through January is when we have a shutdown, and so there really isn't an opportunity to accelerate, but we will do what we can to do the work as quickly as possible should it be decided to do that.
No, thanks for that clarity. Cheers.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Pavlidis, I'll just see if you've got a seconder for your motion. Seconder for the motion, the whole thing. Oh, yeah, okay, Councillor Yildiz. Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Pavlidis is the mover.
I'm not going to repeat basically what I just went through in the decision notice, only to point out that, as I mentioned earlier, that members of the bicycle user group did test out the Pascal Shinny route. This basically opens it all up to the feedback and investigation of all the alternative routes that were mentioned in that report. So I would encourage anyone and everyone who was interested to try them out and provide the feedback when this goes out, I think, in early 2024.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Yildiz is the seconder. Anything to add? No.
There's no point. I think we've invested a fair bit of time into this.
Thanks, Councillor Yildiz. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? Councillor Hart, unmute yourself.
Yeah, look, I agree that we've all spoken at length. I did just want to make just a couple of very quick comments, because I think they're important. There's been a lot of discussion, and I really want to say that I absolutely endorse the role of advocacy at council. But I also, and I understand those who advocate very strongly around protected bike lanes. But I also think it's really important to understand, and the role of a councillor is also really to look very critically, to listen, to evaluate, and to, on balance, come to a decision. And I think as a North West councillor, I spent a lot of time understanding Kent Road, understanding a lot of the complexities of the issues, and I think they started from day one. And I think they started really right at the very onset when there was a decision to still go ahead with Kent Road, even though the state government route had actually changed. So I think we started out with doing something that was maybe not fitting in with a wider policy issue and decisions around network. And then to add to that, the complexity of the location. A number of people try to tell me that Kent Road is the same as Albert Street in Brunswick. It certainly is not. Albert Street in Brunswick doesn't have a medical centre on it, doesn't have the volumes of traffic that are getting in and out, doesn't have roundabouts. So there's a hell of a lot of conditions up there which are very different. And it just reinforces the point that we have to make decisions based on each individual location and on the merit. And I think we've learnt a lot from the Kent Road experiment. What I think is important with this motion that's different from the previous officer motion, I think it's broader. I hear a lot of concerns about the shimmy. I think we need to hear that feedback. We need to still think about the other options, but I think we also need to think about the role of the state government in this. And really, I think, talk about some engagement and collaboration and look at that question of what alternative routes could be funded. And I think the council has borne some of the burden of the state government changing the route to a large degree. And I think that's caused some polarisation, and I think we need to be sitting around that table with state government and council, which is also part of the resolution. So I commend that resolution, and I think hopefully it's got some way forwards, and I think more healthier discussions. And I think the polarisation really just disappoints me.
Thanks, Councillor Hart.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see if there are any other speakers on this item. Councillor Bolton?
I agree with the sort of comments that have been made by Councillor Hart, but I reach a different conclusion about the Pascoe shimmy in between the September meeting and the October meeting, because when I went down it, I walked it rather than biking it, partly because I can't ride, but there were some things. I went down the shimmy before the September meeting and before the October meeting, and on the second go down, I noticed there are some problems with shimmy, and some of the alternative routes for shimmy are actually worse, and because of steep gradients and so forth. And when I was first attracted to the idea of the shimmy and removing the bike lanes, I guess I was thinking about people getting to the businesses on Cumberland Road, and I hadn't really been thinking about how people get from there to Derby Street. And I think the shimmy doesn't work for getting people to Derby Street, to the Derby Street Childcare Centre with their kids on the back of their bike. And so I sort of became aware of those issues and the fact that most cyclists, unless they're just Sunday cyclists where you might have all the time in the world, like to go the most direct route to get to places like car drivers do, like pedestrians do, and cyclists are the same, that they like to go the most direct route, the quickest route. And so I think I hadn't been thinking about those aspects when I voted at the September meeting. So I know the separated bike lanes do add a layer of inconvenience for drivers on the street and local residents, but I do think the shimmy isn't a suitable alternative. I mean, I think I think shimmy should stay as an adjunct to the bike lanes, but not as a replacement for them. I don't think they do what's required. So I just feel that I've gone into it in a lot more depth between those two previous meetings, and I haven't changed my view since the October meeting. So I'm arguing against this resolution.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. If there are no other speakers on this, Councillor Pavlidis, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
Right, thank you. Just very, very briefly, this motion does not favour the shimmy as such. It is provide the feedback, investigate it, but also look at the other routes. If there's a different route that is better suited, then let's have the conversation on that one. It opens it up to not just the Pascoe Vale shimmy, which is the intention. So nothing further. Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this motion? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would councillors like a division? Yep. So all those in favour were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Hart, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Pavlidis, Councillor Tapanos and Councillor Carly Hannon. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Pulford. So we've now voted on that one. So we'll be moving on to 9.2, which is our second notice of rescission for the evening, and that is the DeCarl Street bicycle lanes. Do any councillors have conflicts of interest to declare? If not, Councillor Pavlidis, you wish to move the rescission motion? I'll see if you've got a seconder for this rescission motion. Councillor Yildiz as the seconder. Councillor Pavlidis?
Okay. Okay, I bring this notice of decision because in my opinion, we have gone straight to the solution mode without testing alternative options. In my view, the solution proposed may not, and I repeat, may not be optimal for our community. What I do know, though, is that we don't want another Kent Road. My proposal, when it goes up, we pick it up, enables the implementation of cycling lanes and traffic calming treatments for a trial 12-month period in order to monitor traffic volumes and speed and to ascertain if volumes fall below the 1,500 vehicles per day, which is what is the aim of the report, as is in the report. If after the 12-month period these measures have not worked, Council can investigate other options, including but not limited to flashing pedestrian crossings at the school or modal filters or road closures as mentioned by Councillor Conlon. We have already seen a reduction of traffic volume due to the current turning ban infrastructure for northbound traffic at DeCarl Street. They cannot enter DeCarl Street from the south end of DeCarl. In other words, they can't cross Moreland Road. I believe with the reduction to 40 kilometres per hour and the traffic calming measures, the traffic speeds and the volume should reduce to 1,500 vehicles per day. This will enable DeCarl Street to be safer and accessible to all users instead of solving one problem but creating another one by shifting it to the other local streets, because that's going to happen. We're going to create that one somewhere else. So I encourage you to support this resolution.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. Councillor Yildiz as a seconder. Anything to add?
Yet again, I was pretty vocal in the last council meeting about DeCarl Street, and I don't want to continue because yet again we've devoted a fair bit of time to this, and our agenda is quite extensive. I'd like to just put it to the vote.
Is that a motion to put it to the vote, or just? Yeah.
Okay, let's. Look, I don't want to continue discussing my reasons for
Oh no,
not
sorry, you
supporting
can't
it.
move that as
Okay.
because you're the seconder. Sorry, thanks. Councillor Pulford speaking against this rescission motion. Yep.
Yeah. I can understand why after last meeting a rescission motion was lodged on Kent Road. Like, it has been a very contested issue. I'm really confused why we have another rescission motion about bike lanes ahead of us tonight. I think, to me, this kind of does appear as if some councillors are ideologically against bike lanes. I understand that some councillors abstained at the last vote because they didn't feel like they had the technical information, and I hear that. And since then, councillors have been briefed and we've been sent more information. For me, I think this is a different situation to Kent Road, although I did obviously support bike lanes on Kent Road. For me, this is in Brunswick, the community supports bike lanes a lot more. 55 out of the 77 people who engaged in the most recent round of consultation on the latest design of DeKalb Street that wasn't protected bike lanes kind of questioned what happened to the protected bike lanes or expressed their support for protected bike lanes. We have made previous decisions as a council to install protected bike lanes there that councillors who are now arguing against these ones did support previously. And we did take protected bike lanes to consultation and only 2 people spoke up. And that was even when they were aware that they were losing some car parking. At our last meeting, we had the Merri-bek Primary School principal here saying that she, for her students, her school community and her, wants the protected bike lanes, the school borders to DeKalb Street. So, I just feel a bit confused why we're considering this rescission motion. It does feel like an ideological attack against bike lanes when this context is very different. There's lots of people who've expressed their support for it, whereas in Kent Road, yes, there was opposition to it. And we've gone to consultation on this. We're not rushing to the solution. Like, we've consulted on this solution and we've consulted on it many times. And even in the last consultation, when we didn't consult on specifically protected bike lanes, our community said, hey, what happened to the protected bike lanes? So anyway, I can't support this rescission tonight, and I really hope other councillors don't, because I'm starting to worry that every decision about active transport, we're going to have rescission motions put forward.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Is there a speaker in favour of this rescission motion? If not, is there a speaker... No. Is there a speaker against this rescission motion? Councillor Bolton?
I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I think at the last council meeting, I think I did make a mistake on not voting to defer, because I'm aware that there was at least 1 or 2 councillors who were seeking more information up to the council meeting, and I think I really should have voted for that. So in a sense, the rescission motion has resulted in a similar outcome, i.e. a delay of a month to allow councillors to get the information. I'm not in favour of a rescission motion, but if the rescission motion gets up, I'm certainly in favour of protected bike lanes on that particular area being a primary school route. So that would be my favoured, view for DeKalb Street, because I'm just uncomfortable with a situation where you have 1 lane of traffic and 2 painted strips of bike lanes where it's acceptable for the cars to use the bike lanes to pass each other. Given that you've got, some quite young children cycling to school in that area. So I feel quite strongly about DeKalb Street, unless there's an absolute impediment to why you can't have separated bike lanes. I think that's that's definitely my favoured solution. Maybe the intermodal thingamy-jigs that slow down traffic might work, maybe. I'm not really that familiar with them. But I feel quite strongly about safety for primary school children cycling.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Are there any other speakers on the rescission motion? Councillor Hart, is that, in favour or against it?
Sorry if I get confused. I'm speaking in favour of the rescission.
Of rescinding?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Yeah. Councillor Hart.
And again, I'm actually speaking just why I'm in favour of, I'm keeping it particularly to the rescission motion. At the last, and sorry, I just want to say, thank you to Councillor Pulford for his comments. And I mean, I guess I just do want to express that it's, for me, it's not an ideological position at all. For me, at the last meeting, I had come to the meeting ready to abstain because I didn't understand enough. We didn't have a briefing. And I felt that there were not just myself, but there were a number of councillors who really weren't prepared to make a decision. And I think I felt it was important that that should have been deferred. And largely, I'm not in favour of rescission motions as a whole, but that's why I'm supporting it tonight. I still feel very ambivalent about what's the right way to go with that, and I'm not unsympathetic to the issue around protected bike lanes. But it's, to me, I still feel very, very equivocal, and it is about, I don't want another issue like Kent Road. But that's why I'm supporting, so for more debate tonight, that's why I'm supporting the rescission motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hart. Councillor Conlon speaking against the rescission motion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I think it's just very disappointing to have arrived at where we are on this particular issue. So just to go back to the history of this particular project, I mean, I forget the year, I think it was 2020 or 2021, Council voted unanimously, very uncontroversially to install protected bike lanes on this road. As I said, we've gone out to consultation 3 times. We've received overwhelmingly positive community support for the proposal, including from the principal of Merri-bek Primary School, who came to the meeting last month to tell us to please put protected bike lanes because it'll make the kids safer getting to and from school. So it's, yeah, look, I mean, let's look at, I think we really have to read between the lines as to what has happened here. Like, so we voted in favour of this decision as a council unanimously. The design was then changed via a briefing. A briefing. We weren't given we've never been given a very comprehensive reason as to why that was changed. There's been sort of vague references to the technicalities, but none of those are written in the officer reports as to why this was changed. So, like, again, councillors, read between the lines what's going on here. In the conversations, it does seem to me that the real reason for changing the design, again, via a briefing after the council had unanimously resolved to approve these bike lanes, is because of political sensitivities related to Kent Road, which have been indicated by officers in discussions. You know, so that's the political, like, we need to think about that context, about where we're at. And I guess to zoom back a bit for...
But just a point of order. I find it difficult.
I'm moving on from that point, yeah.
It's just Councillor Davidson and then back to Councillor Conlon.
Yeah, I am struggling with the assertions that there's these, the doubt that's been cast upon our council officers and their opinion based on a political stance. I think our council officers work without fear or favour and present information according to their expertise.
Councillor Conlon, would you be able to just keep it to the rescission motion itself,
yeah,
please?
I'm not denying the professionalism. I'm just saying we need to look at the context about where the advice has come from. Anyway, but I guess to zoom back a bit as well, like I keep saying, like the idea that the community is sort of divided or opposed to protected bike lanes, I really don't think is the case. Like, again, we've got a plethora of community groups across Merri-bek begging us all the time to please do interventions into streets to make our streets safer for people. And again, we just seem to be coming back to the same thing where councillors say, oh, we're not necessarily opposed to these in theory, and then when we have the concrete proposals, they get voted against consistently by the same councillors. So it is hard to I want to believe that those councillors support that, but there's such a deep anxiety about making the changes that we need to change our street. So, like, it's not a radical proposal to put protected bike lanes in on a street. When you look at how our city functions, like Merri-bek, we've got 3 protected bike lanes across the entire municipality. As a proportion of every single street That's what, I don't know, it's probably 0.00% of the entire road network is prioritised for people rather than cars. And it's not to say that people who drive cars are bad or evil. It's to say that if we want to make our streets safer across the city, like it's inevitable that some of the streets are not going to be prioritised for cars. I don't think that's a radical proposal to say a handful of
Councillor
streets
Conlon, last sentence.
across the municipality should be designed around people who walk and ride, and especially kids wanting to get to school. So I understand the anxieties around it, but I do think that we are, as councillors, going to have to make some choices on a limited number of streets and change how the street functions, which will mean deprioritising the car. And that is not an anti-car thing or an anti-motorist thing. It's a call that we need to make some changes to reduce the road toll.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. If there are no other speakers on this, we'll go back to Councillor Pavlidis for a right of reply. I will just note, though, that it is 9:20 and we have a lot of agenda items to get through, so please keep to time and I'll start chiming in more frequently. Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis.
Look, I'm not going to add anything further. I need to say that, again, it's more along having a trial to, instead of going from A to Z, going through the steps of sort of A, B, C, D, and moving and sort of slowly moving across to see what works and what doesn't, and making adjustments as required, rather than, as I said, facing another Kent Road. I just want to sort of respond to a couple of the comments. I'm not sure about this ideological thing that Councillor Fulford. According to council, when you go to a council meeting, you are supposed to go in with an open mind and make decisions based on what you have been in there, on based on the report. The fact that without fail, every single time, certain councillors vote a certain way, they do not look at it individually. They do not base it as per an action plan that says it's based on a...
Pavlidis, we'll just not try and, I guess, infer the way that particular councillors think about each decision, and try not to undermine if councillors come prepared or not to council meetings. So if you could just keep it to a right of reply on the rescission motion itself, please.
I also want to make a comment in relation to the first drawings that was presented. Now, I know this for a fact because I asked the question. My question on consultation for those first drawings was if you went out to sort of the broader area, the broader DeCarl Street, which covers Rennie Avenue, the Grove, Blair, Moore, all those streets. The officers came back and said, no, we didn't. It was focused on DeCarl Street. So that to me is not a broad engagement or consultation with the community, because they do use the road. And I would know I've gone down that road daily for the past 20 odd years. So no, they weren't consulted. So, and the thing about bike lanes, well, there are 3 currently that we've approved, and there's more in the pipeline.
Councillor Pavlidis, last sentence, please. Thanks.
Just to say there's more in the pipeline, and we also have the LXRP, which is not for vehicles. Nothing further.
All right, thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this rescission motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against this rescission motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll get a division on that one. So all those in favour were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Hart, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Pavlidis, Councillor Carly Hannon and Councillor Tapanos. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Pulford. So now we'll move on to a substantive, and Councillor Pavlidis, you've got something to move. Your hands up, you've just ducked out of screen. Yep. So what?
Yes, I do.
Great. Just confirm what it is that you're moving, and then we'll see if you've got a seconder. And yeah, we'll keep this debate tight.
What was circulated.
Yeah, so it's on the screen now. I'll just confirm that that's what you were after, and I'll just see if you've got a seconder for this motion.
I was just wondering what sort of cycling lanes Is that separated or?
Paint, I
Paint,
presume.
okay.
This is the officer. So this is sorry, just to
The officer
clarify, this
recommendation.
was the officer recommendation from last month's council meeting. Okay, great. So Councillor Pavlidis, you're to move that. Do you have a we'll see if you've got a seconder for what was the officer recommendation from last month's meeting. Is there a seconder for this? All right, so Councillor Carly Hannon to second it. Give me a second. Councillor Bolton, what was your question?
Yeah, I've just got a question about road closure. Is that road closure of part of DeKalb Street, or is that road closure of streets coming on to DeKalb Street?
It's not in here.
It says road closure.
Where?
I just saw it.
Oh, for possible road closure. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, Anita, sorry. Okay, thanks, Councillor Bolton. Sorry, I missed that. Anita, would you be able to address that on road closure?
Thanks, Mayor. So the opportunity, if the volumes don't fall below 1,500 vehicles per day, then there would be an opportunity to investigate options for road closure. That could be any possible variation on the theme of road closure. So it could be one only blocking entry to a particular part of the road. It could be blocking exit to a particular part of a road, and there could be modal filtering along with that. All of those things would need to be worked out in the report that came back to council at that time.
Great. Thank you, Anita. Councillor Pavlidis, as the mover, would you like to speak to this? You're on mute. Yep, there we go.
I don't think I've got anything further, because I think I mentioned everything when I spoke on the decision, except to say that I've tried to incorporate the suggestions by Councillor Conlon about modal filters and closures of the road and so forth. But I've taken the approach of let's try the trial first based on what it is, and for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, the fact that there'll be traffic calming measures, there'll be the cycling lanes, obviously the reduced speed and so forth, and should they not reduce to the 1,500 as mentioned in the report, then we can investigate further, as I mentioned, like the pedestrian crossing, the flashing pedestrian crossing for the school, the road closure, and any other suggestions that may come, say, after a 12-month period. But going, as I said, in a step-by-step process rather than going straight to road closures and so forth, and then having another Kent Knight scenario.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. Councillor Carly Hannon is the seconder. Anything to add?
I'll just add that it was the officer recommendation. So I think any insertions that it's not about supporting cycling infrastructure is incorrect. I think it's just about choosing the right treatment for the right road. And also just to point out that for primary school age children, they're allowed to ride on the footpath, and that's what I'd be recommending those families to do.
Thanks, Councillor Carly Hannon. Are there any speakers against this motion? Councillor Conlon?
Before I do, can I ask officers a question of point 3? Sure. Just wanting to know, when is that report back to council planned to come? So we'll have there's a 12-month period, trial period of this new design, but when is the,
So rough timeframes of when that 12-month thing would come back. Anita?
Mayor, probably the best way to answer that would be from the day of installation, when we've completed installation, 12 months of data collection. Yep. So then we would do the post-analysis and then come back maybe 2 months after that. So I can't give you an exact date, but that would be the sequence.
The rough timeframe. Great. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Conlon, did you wish to speak against this?
I think that's, it's a minor step in the right process, step in the right direction to investigate, potential to have partial or full some kind of road closure. Because I guess the ultimate outcome is that we want to make this street safe for people who ride. So again, you can't do that if there's 2,000 car, 2,200 cars a day. Like it doesn't work like that. Anyone who rides a bike knows that. Yeah, like if it's a even if it's a back street and there's that amount of cars, it's simply not safe to ride a bike on there. So especially for kids. So yeah, I would hope that that report, we can investigate how to make it safer by reducing the number of through traffic through the street. But look, I guess I'm not going to support this because I do think that I do support the original proposal, which was the unanimous council decision, which was for protected bike lanes. So I'm not happy to support such a downgrade in the design and in the overall safety outcomes for people who ride, especially kids getting to school.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Are there any other speakers in favour of this motion? Any other speakers against? Okay, Councillor Pulford, then Councillor Bolton, and then we'll write a reply, put this to the vote then.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
I'm just really disappointed in the rescission getting up tonight. After the clear call from community members, the primary school, after previous unanimous council decisions, it's just really astounding. And I can't interpret it. I'm not saying that every councillor who voted for it is ideologically against bike lanes, but I know we have at least a handful on this council. And yeah, so it's just a bit shocked, really. Just to make a point, it's a fair point that primary school age students can ride on the footpath, but parents sometimes ride with their children, and sometimes parents have younger kids that they need to put on like a cargo bike. So, and they can't ride on a footpath on a cargo bike. So I think it's too limited to just view the people that these lanes would protect would be primary school students that don't need them, because people travel as families, and I mean, we should be protecting everyone on our roads, not just primary school students, but I think that's a key point to pick up. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. I did have Councillor Davidson with her hand up, so we'll go Councillor Davidson, Councillor Bolton, Councillor Yildiz, right of reply, and then we'll vote and we'll move on. Councillor Davidson.
Okay. I'm pleased that the rescission motion did get up, because during that time and that break, I was able to have a very good discussion with council officers and also some of my colleagues about this particular section of road. I can see points in favour both ways, and it's a difficult call to make. And I think this section of road is different to Kent Road, and the users of this road are different to the users of Kent Road, and its makeup is different. Here we've got a primary school. What concerns me about the bike lanes not being protected is that the design only allows for one car to go through, and if there are two cars going in the opposite direction, one is going to need to go into the bike lane. And that design concerns me. I know that with the protected bike lanes, there are also different other safety factors that will need to be taken into consideration. So, for example, coming into roundabouts and how the visual sight of motorists is impaired by parked cars, and then the cyclist will need to enter the roundabout and also merge with the road traffic, the cars. That's a concerning factor. There's no real perfect solution, and I've weighed this up, and based on the information that I've received in the time that we've had off, that I've been able to really investigate this further and benefit from the expert opinions of council officers and the opinions of my colleagues. I'm going to be voting in favour of the protected bike lanes, because I don't see how cars merging or merging into the bike lane is going to be favourable for bike users. I think that creates a problem, and it's a different setup. There's a school there as well. I think the community in that section is broadly supportive of this. Weighing on the balance of what I've received, I am supportive of the motion that was successful last month.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. All right, so a speaker in favour of this motion, Councillor Yildiz, and I'll just remind councillors that we will need a foreshadowed alternative if this motion does not succeed.
Just very quickly, I really take offence when people label individuals as though we are against bike lanes or against pedestrian ease or against public transport. I really take offence to that. For the record, and I hope people are listening to this, I am not against bike lanes. What I am against, I don't mind having painted bike lanes. What we've done on Derby Street, we do the same on Kent Road. I've got no issue with that. Absolutely no issue. But protected bike lanes, concrete bollards have not worked. We've got absolute proof. So I don't want to get into a debate, but I really, it agitates me, it makes me really disappointed that councillors will sit here and make us and generalise and make us feel as though you're making us feel as though we're totally against bike lanes. I ride a bike, for crying out loud. And if you want me to prove it to you, I'll ride a bike to the next council meeting just to prove it to you. I've got a bike. It's not about, I don't hate bikes, I ride them. So please don't make those comments. And I don't make those comments about anyone else. And so you shouldn't do that for others, yeah? Bit of respect.
Thanks, Councillor Yildiz. Councillor Bolton as the final speaker on this, and just flagging that about the foreshadowed alternative.
Yeah, so I actually agree with the comments that Councillor Davidson raised about the why she's supporting protected bike lanes in this particular location. I also, but apart from the, so I oppose this motion but would support what I believe will be a foreshadowed motion for protected bike lanes. For all the reasons Councillor Davidson said, I'm just uncomfortable with cars being able to use those painted bike lanes that the officer recommendation has in order to pass each other. And it's just, all you need is a cyclist to hit a rock or something on the road and tumble into the path of a car. Like, it's so easy for a tragic accident to happen. But also, I think with this motion that's been put forward by Councillor Pavlidis, I also think that, so if the traffic calming measures don't work and then council has to look at road closures, I mean, I guess it depends on the location. I know this council's got a position of supporting road closures, but sometimes road closures can cause big problems for other streets because all the traffic doesn't vanish. It goes, and it doesn't vanish unless there are adequate alternatives for people to not drive. And so it just means you create shift a traffic disaster from one area to another street, which might have been just a little quiet street, and suddenly it's got, 1,000 cars going down it each day. So you would want damn good consultation about any consideration of road closures coming off to Carl Street. Otherwise you could, you'd need quite wide consultation. Otherwise you'd create a lot of unhappy people in the community. So yeah, I'm opposed to this motion and I would vote in favour of any alternative motion for protected bike lanes.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Pulford.
I just would like to foreshadow that if this motion doesn't pass, I'd like to move the the alternate we passed last meeting.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pulford. So we'll go back to Councillor Pavlidis for a right of reply and then we'll vote on this. Councillor Pavlidis.
Thank you. Now, if I recall correctly, and I'm sure I wasn't the only councillor there, the reason why the officers have recommended this infrastructure instead of the protected bike lane is because of the bluestone. It is heritage and they deemed it unsafe to have bikes riding on the bluestone. Hence why they've changed the design.
Point of order, we could ask that of officers.
Can I just confirm, Anita, was that the main reason or one of the reasons?
So officers advised that the bluestones would effectively reduce the available width for smooth riding for cyclists. It is counted as part of the width of the bike lane, but it does in some parts take about 30 centimetres off the bike lane away from the smooth riding. Now, where it's people's elbows and knees, it doesn't make a big difference, but that was the advice that officers provided.
Great. Thank you, Anita. Councillor Pavlidis, sorry, feel free to continue.
So basically, if they ride on the bluestone, considered unsafe. And just to sort of answer Councillor Bolton in relation to the road closures that it shifts, that's exactly what I said when I proposed this motion. Shifting the issues from DeCarl Street, if it was to be closed, and creating the problem in the other local streets. So, like I said, we'll be solving one issue in DeCarl, but creating other route runs in the other local streets. Other than repeating what I've already said, it's, yeah, I'm just gobsmacked really, but yeah, nothing further.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those against this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And is that an abstention? All right, I'll get a division on that. So all those in favour of this motion were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Pavlidis, Councillor Tapanos and Councillor Carly Hannon. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Pulford, with Councillor Hart being an abstention. So that has been lost, and so we've had a foreshadowed alternative. So Councillor Pulford will just get that up on the screen and confirming that was the motion that was carried at last month's council meeting. Yep, so we'll get that up on the screen. We'll check if you've got a seconder, and then we'll see how much debate there needs to be on this. Thanks. And so Councillor Conlon, you're happy to second it? Thank you. So we'll just get it up on the screen. So that is 9.2. Okay. That's the motion that you want?
Yeah.
Excellent. Councillor Pulford is the mover.
Yeah, look, I made my points about why we should support this motion previously. I think what happened here tonight is councillors genuinely wanted more debate and entertained that, and we've seen that happen. I will use my right of reply to say anything further if other issues come in debate.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Conlon is the seconder.
So speaking in favour of this, again here, I do hear the advice of the officers, but again, I think it's worth pointing out that they are still a sufficient width of bike lane. We have lots of bike lanes some bike lanes across the city which don't necessarily always meet the full, gold standard width of a bike lane. But it's kind of same with any infrastructure. There are times where we have to kind of make compromises and fit infrastructure into, especially an established city like Merri-bek, and we do make compromises on design frequently, not just for bike lanes, but for lots of, city infrastructure. So it's not always possible to squeeze in, the ideal standard, but I'm, confident based on the advice that we've received by officers and the extensive discussions that we've had that overall, this is definitely going to be a much safer outcome for the people who ride along that street by having some kind of physical separation. I'm confident if kids are able to ride a bike, they can avoid riding on the 30 centimetres of bluestone, and then they'll be able to use the rest of the width of the bike lane in order to remain safe from moving traffic. So, I'm very comfortable supporting this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2, 3, with the one abstention. Do we wish for another division? Sure, all right. So all those in favour were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Conlon, Councillor Pulford. All those against were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Tapanos and Councillor Pavlidis, and Councillor Hart was an abstention. Thanks, councillors, for the debate on those two rescission items. So now we'll move on to confirmation of minutes from our previous meetings. So I'm happy to move this motion, and this is the confirmation of minutes from the 18th of October meeting. Now this so we're now moving this in this order because we've resolved on a position for both the rescissions on DeCarl Street and Kent Road, and the minutes will be subject to the following amendment. So under item 7.2 for DeCarl Street, replacing the existing notation to reinstate and include the recorded proceedings that are displayed on the screen. So it includes that executive summary as well as the motion that was finally approved. And the same thing with the Kent Road item, where it'll explain the motion that was finally moved, and executive summary as well, I believe. Yes. So that will just a bit more accurately reflect the events that have transpired. So I'll just see if I've got a seconder to confirm those minutes. Okay. Yep. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. All right. Sorry. But regardless, the decisions that we've made have been included in those minutes. So I'll just confirm if I've got a seconder for those minutes. Councillor Bolton to second. All those in favour? Oh, no. Is that a question, or would you like to speak against that, Councillor Pavlidis?
Yes, I'm voting against adoption of the minutes.
All right. Do you wish to speak against it, or shall we just go to the vote?
Yeah, no, because I would like this minutes if I can.
Yep.
I'm speaking against, similar to the last meeting, where because it obviously relates to the minutes and the bike lanes. Basically, they're not a true and accurate record of what took place at the meeting. Our governance rules state what must be included, and these minutes don't. So, for example, if I was to hold up the minutes and watch the video on our website, they would not be the same. So, to me, it's not a true and accurate record. So it doesn't comply with our governance rules. The minutes reflect what happened at I'll speak for both September and the October meetings, but they include what transpired in the following month's meeting. So how can you rewrite history? How can you put what occurred in the following month in the past month's meeting? I'll be voting against.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak in favour of these minutes? If not, we'll just put that to the vote then. All those in favour of... Oh, do you wish to speak in favour? Against these minutes? All right, Councillor Hart, unmute yourself.
Yeah, look, I'll just be brief. I understand why the council have adopted this way to try and account for what happens with rescission motions. I accept the logic of what Councillor Pavlidis is saying. I understand that legal advice was that this is okay, but I think it really points to the need to really review the governance rules and how we deal with this. Because I accept the notion, I think it's quite difficult when you start to incorporate what's happened at 2 meetings and then say that's a record of the previous meeting. I think that's problematic, despite the fact that that might have been the legal advice. I think it's problematic.
Right, thanks, Councillor Hart. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of confirming these minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against confirming these minutes? 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to presume 1 abstention. So the minutes have been carried. Yep. So all those in favour of these minutes were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Conlon, Councillor Pulford. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Hart, and Councillor Pavlidis. And Councillor Tapanos, was that an abstention on the minutes? Yep. All right. I will.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the minutes have been carried. So now we'll go back into our council reports. So first up we have 7.1, another confirmation of minutes, but this time from the 13th of September 2023 council meeting. Do I have a motion? A mover? Councillor Davidson to move. A seconder? Councillor Conlon to second. Councillor Davidson is the mover. Anything to... No. Councillor Conlon?
Look, I recognise the difficulty and complexity, which is why I'm happy to in this instance, we need to get some minutes approved, so I'm happy to do that, but I'm happy to talk further about the governance rules, and I do agree that we need to review those. So, yeah, we'll debate that later.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Is there a speaker against these minutes? Councillor Pavlidis?
I'm just going to reiterate what I said 2 minutes ago. The same will apply for these adoption of these minutes, because they basically say we're rescinding, but it doesn't say what we're rescinding. So the same will apply.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. I'll see if there are any speakers in favour of these minutes. If not, we'll actually, as the mover, Councillor Davidson, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
No, I don't.
All right, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour of these minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3. Councillor Yildiz? An abstention? All right, so that has been carried. All right, division? Yep, so all those in favour of these minutes were Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Conlon and Councillor Tapanos. You had your hand up, yep. All those against were Councillor Bolton, Councillor Hart, Councillor Pavlidis and Councillor Yildiz was an abstention. Next is 7.2, moving around Merri-bek, the draft transport strategy for consultation. Do I have a motion on this? Councillor Conlon to move. Anyone to second? Councillor Bolton to second. Councillor Conlon?
Yeah, happy to move this report. I guess it basically outlines, council's renewed transport strategy following the changes to the previous strategy, the Moreland Integrated Transport Strategy. Just the key point for me in this report is that there's lots of good work and projects identified for council to deliver in terms of active transport, but it's noted in the report that the key thing that we need in order to deliver this is more money. So that will follow on to a later report where we're talking about increasing the per capita spend on cycling and walking.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. And can I just confirm which names you're moving with the motion? So
I forgot.
yes, that's okay. So the list that we had circulated prior was Councillor Pavlidis as chair, Councillors Pulford, Tapanos and myself to sit on that committee.
Great.
Great, that's what you're moving. Councillor Bolton as a seconder, anything to add?
Just a little bit, because I am pleased that some of the omissions by the consultant that we used were fixed up in the draft report that's been presented to councillors tonight. I felt that the consultant who did the initial work was really underrated the public transport issues in Merri-bek, not even recognising the problems on the upfill line and a number of other areas. But so I think the report is much, quite a good report, but this is really going out to consultation. And I think the hearing of verbal submissions is the end of January. So I sort of look forward to people's, comments and proposals coming up through community consultation. One thing I would make a mention of, which I've been asked about, is people, especially in the Newlands area, have been talking to me about what's happened to that motion that we passed unanimously about transport safety in Coburg North in Coburg. What I understand from the council office, and why is that not reflected in this report, but what I understand from the council officers is that the council officers are working through those actions, and there'll be a report back to councillors at the beginning of next year, and then depending on what the recommended actions are, they will get included in the action plan. So that notice of motion hasn't been lost. It's being worked on at the moment, but it doesn't appear in this draft transport strategy because the actions haven't like what sort of actions haven't been finalised yet.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? Councillor Hart?
Yeah, really just briefly, just want to commend it. I think it's a lot of fantastic engagement, consultation. I think it's really refreshing. I think it's inclusive. And I really think it can help guide. I know it's consultation period, so there'll be building on that, but I think it's a very good framework and really want to commend it. And all the work and enthusiasm that's been put into that by the officers and the engagement process, I think it's been excellent.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Hart. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Next is 7.3, making it easier to walk and ride in Merri-bek, options for indexation of per capita spending on active transport. Do I have a motion? Okay. Councillor Conlon, can I just check what it is that you're moving?
I kind of forgot if it's an amended officer recommendation or an alternative officer recommendation, but I've circulated the wording.
It's just a new motion.
Hey?
It's just a
Just an
motion.
alternative.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll get that up on the screen. Yep, so increased spending by the rate cap each year. That's the key difference.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Councillor Pulford, is that the one that you wish to second? Yep. Councillor Conlon is the mover.
Yeah, so basically, at the moment, council, we have our rule, which is that we spend $10 per head on walking and cycling each year in the budget, which is, it's very good and it's a nice, clear, easy to understand metric that the community can really understand. And the other point I wanted to say about the transport strategy is that it's really great that there's a bit more transparency around how council is calculating this figure every year, and it can get a bit messy because sometimes it's a little bit higher or lower each year depending on like exactly what projects are delivered. But I think the key point to note is that while the $10 per figure is good, it's not tied to indexation. So as a proportion of the overall budget, it will decline if we don't index it. And I think some councils might be nervous about indexing it because it means it's going to increase every year, but I think it's important to note that it's actually not, a financially it's not going to be a huge burden to the budget, because other parts of the budget also increase each year because the overall budget increases every year, not by enough, we know, but it does increase each year through the tying to rates capping. So while the budget increases every year, sorry, it's getting late. I think it's given that most parts of other parts of the budget increase in line with the rate cap, so should this important part of the transport budget should also increase with the rate cap.
God, I did it once. So I'll see if we've got a motion to extend the time from 10 to 10:30. Okay, moved by Councillor Conlon, seconded by Councillor Pavlidis. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Okay, Councillor Pulford is the seconder. Do you wish to add anything?
Yeah, just that since 2019, the budget's been declining in real terms, and this links it to the rate cap rather than inflation, which is easier for officers. So just to note that this is only referring this to the budget process, next year's budget process. So we will have to decide that amongst all the other decisions we have to consider next year. But, I think this is what should be referred to us to consider at that time. So it's not locking the decision in now.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Are there any speakers against this? Any other speakers on this? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Next is 7.4, Rainbow Tick accreditation requirements, priorities, phasing and costs for council services and programs. Do we have a motion? Councillor Pulford? Yep, what do you wish to move?
To move the motion circulated over email between Councillor Tapanos and myself.
Yep.
But add a third section,
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll just email through to Eve now.
Yep.
Which is the one that was flagged by the community group that it spoke this evening, which is just saying simply that we want to ask our LGBTIQ reference group about their spending priorities, which I think we would do anyway, but just for the, we've had a couple of community groups come up here and tell us that, a couple of our reference groups saying that they want to hear from us more, or we need to hear from them more. So this makes sure that happen.
Great. I'll see if you've got a seconder for that. Councillor Tapanos to second. Councillor Pulford as the mover. Anything to speak to?
This is referring this, like the last one, to our budget process to make a decision. Rainbow Tick accreditation is important and worthwhile, but we have to consider all of our spending against competing priorities as councillors. We'll do that at the budget. This keeps the option open, but also looks, just to specifically note, the opportunity cost of spending $250,000 on accreditation would mean $250,000 less potentially for other queer programs. So we just need to factor that in next year.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Tapanos, anything to add?
No, nothing further.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. I'll see if there's a speaker against. No, a speaker in favour, Councillor Hart.
Yeah, look, I think this is a great motion because it leaves open those options, and particularly the work that was done on the action plan and the importance to many people to be able to look at the like 2B, which is around having events and particularly a queer festival, and I know that's a strong feeling in the community. Weighing that up against, I guess, a rainbow tick's a difficult balance. I understand, the importance of both. But I think that allows that discussion, and I think it's great that we do link it back to the reference group, because I think it really empowers reference groups, and that's really what that link we need to be making back to council. And I know Sean's still here, so thanks for sticking it out for your motion. No, I think it's a great one, and the thought around it is good.
Great, thanks, Councillor Hart. If there are no other speakers, then we'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Is that an abstention? We'll have that noted as an abstention from Councillor Davidson. So the next one is 7.5, the Children, Young People and Families Plan 2021 to 2025, implementation of Year 2 actions. Do I have a motion? Councillor Riley to move. A seconder? Guys, please. Thank you. Councillor Pulford to second. Councillor Riley?
I think we just take it as read, please.
Thanks.
I'll just thank the officers for their work on this.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Pulford as the seconder. Take it as read. All right, any speakers on this? If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.6 is a sports ground surface study. Any mover here? Councillor Conlon to move, and I'll confirm what it is that you're moving.
I'm actually, moving an alternative motion.
Yep.
So it's the officer recommendation with an additional point that was circulated at 3:31 p.m. by Eamon.
Yep.
And there's a new point 2, which reads, amends the policy to include a requirement that any proposed new synthetic sporting ground is subject to council consideration and decision.
Great, I'll see if you've got a seconder for that one. Councillor Pulford to second. Councillor Conlon as the mover.
I think it's fairly clear that this amendment is about ensuring that there's a lot of councillor oversight over the approval of any new synthetic surfaces in our municipality, particularly given the big community campaign around Hoskin Reserve, and also in specific reference to the policy in the report. I note that a lot of the community, there's a lot of detailed community submissions that council received as part of the consultation process for this policy, and those submissions, I read them in detail. Really, those people went to a lot of effort to communicate to council the ongoing serious issues with synthetic turf, especially around the microplastics, the potential health impacts, the environmental issues, and also the potential sporting injuries that can result from synthetic turf. So, this is just an amendment to make sure that council has really good oversight over new synthetic turf proposals.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Pulford is the seconder. Nothing further to add. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? If not, no, okay. If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Next is 7.7, towards a place-based community co-management of parks and open spaces project report. Do we have a motion? Councillor Riley to move, a seconder. Councillor Pulford to second. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, just briefly, this is a result of a notice of motion I put, and while I'm all for community development, I don't think council's necessarily the best people to lead it, but this is something we can fall back on if communities wish to take it up, and we would support them in doing that. So it came out of my experience at Fleming Park, which was quite an interesting one, and thankfully we delivered that project. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Pulford is the seconder. Nothing to add. Are there any speakers against this? Any other speakers in favour of this? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Next is 7.8, Brunswick Early Years Hub Project Update. Do we have a motion? Councillor Riley to move, a seconder. Councillor Hart to second. Councillor Riley.
No, just acknowledging the report and the progress and the issues associated with it. Thanks for the work that officers have put into this.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Hart, anything to add?
Just ditto.
Thanks, Councillor Hart. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? I need to see more hands, thank you. All those against? That has been carried. 7.9, Suburb Boundary Realignment, Bridges Avenue in Coburg North and Pascoe Vale. Do I have a motion? Councillor Pulford to move, Councillor Riley to second. Councillor Pulford.
It's fairly administrative. Please read the report if you are interested in it.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Riley, nothing to add. Any speakers against this? Any other speakers in favour? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. 7.10 is Public Litter Bins Changeover Update. Do I have a motion? Councillor Riley to move, a seconder. Councillor Pulford to second. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, I just want to thank officers for the work on this. I'm glad to see that we're doing this, even though we're going to take time to do it. And I failed to understand how it costs $1,000 to actually treat a bin. I think that estimate, I have to say, astonishes me. If it is, it's quite astonishing. Thanks anyway.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Pulford, nothing to add. Any speakers against this? Any other speakers in favour of this? If not, we'll... Oh, yes? Sorry. Too keen to vote. We'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.11 is community support during extreme heat events. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bolton to move. A seconder? Okay, Councillor Davidson to second. Councillor Bolton.
This report is a response to notice of motion I moved about extreme heat events. And I certainly accept the, I mean, it is basically, well, firstly I should start with the resolution itself, which is talking about making community venues available in summer for people to seek respite from heat, including extended operating hours. However, really, it is sort of a bit similar to what we've done in the past, in the sense that they're really the only places in Merri-bek to get cool, apart from private venues, is the swimming pools and the libraries. I mean, basically that's it. And council did consult with Blacktown City Council that's trialled cooling centres, and there were some, you know, they didn't really fully work. I'm not sure if they've continued with them, but there are limitations of those cooling centres. But I basically think, so I'm happy to support the council officer's recommendation, but I feel that state governments and local councils need to work a lot further on this, because the scale of temporary temperature predictions with climate change are quite scary. And I know we've been protected in Melbourne in recent years compared to other parts of Australia. But, you know, when the temperature gets to 50 degrees, like, it's going to be fucking unlivable. Well, that's, sorry, sorry. But it is 50 degrees. Like, there are some parts of Australia that, well, one part maybe, not several, but one, that reach 50 degrees in the last summer. So, you know, we actually do, like, you know, that's is crisis situation. So I think there's more that has to be done, but we really need to put pressure on the state governments to actually really think seriously about this issue.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Davidson as a seconder.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Bolton, for moving this motion and for proposing it to Council yourself. I think this is part of a raft of initiatives that Council can utilise as a way of combating and assisting very vulnerable clients within our community. I know a lot of the elderly people who do live in homes that haven't been renovated and don't have good air conditioning or ways to bring cross ventilation into their home do suffer dramatically during extreme heat events. And some of our libraries and other locations are some of the coolest places where people can go during the peak hours of the heat in the summer. So I thoroughly endorse this motion. And also the flip side of it is when elderly residents or people who live in homes that don't have insulation, that's the other flip side in winter, that we need to support people who are vulnerable within our community that do need assistance for combating both sides of the weather.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Next is 7.12, Community Information and Support Merri-bek. Do we have a mover? I did see Councillor Pulford to move and then Councillor Bolton to second. Councillor Pulford?
Yeah, really pleased to see this coming from council officers, and thank you to the officers who worked with Community Information and Support Merri-bek over the past few months, but also beyond that. Essentially, they're a critical organisation providing emergency and relief, and much more than that, to community members who are struggling. And as we know, with the cost of living crisis, more and more people are struggling to make ends meet. And with rents rising and interest rates rising and house prices rising, as well as everything else. So this organisation, the future of this organisation is actually under threat. They losing their office space at some time in the future, so we do need to do more work to find them secure location. But just really pleased that council officers have putting this forward, and I really encourage councillors at our next budget decision to prioritise this spending, given the critical work these guys do. They also are really after volunteers to help. So if you want to volunteer, you should find out more about them.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Bolton as a seconder.
Thanks. I was actually quite shocked when I read the report to find out of the more than 30 Community Information Service Victoria member agencies that are funded by the federal government. The one in Merri-bek is the only agency that does not receive assistance from the council in the form of a venue and operational staffing costs. So this was an issue in council a number of years ago, or several years ago, where I moved a motion to support CIS Moreland, as it was then, and the report was meant to come back for council of ongoing assistance, but that never happened. So, I mean, basically the alarm bells got raised when, you know, they're about to, you know, facing potential closure, and things are not out of the woods, but I think they are really happy that officers are making this recommendation. I think this is really important, and probably they have expanded or changed a little bit since maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because as well as doing emergency relief, they're also providing more in the way of, I guess people use the term wraparound services now, or at least pointing people in the direction of how they can get other assistance. So their scope has sort of broadened. It's not just giving out the voucher, but actually finding out how people need assistance to survive. And so they're playing a much broader role. So I certainly commend this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, just very quickly, just wanted to lend my support, and I think both councillors who moved it and seconded it had meetings, and really thank them for bringing this to council. I just can't say enough the important work that's done by Community Information and Support Services. I've worked with organisations like that for a long time, and yes, they're largely council supported. So I think it's a really important role for council. You could argue, are we picking up that's what's not being done? But essentially, I have always seen these services as largely embedded in by local government and embedded into community in that way. So I think it's an important function that we do, and it opens up connection, opens up good referral services, and provides some security to the organisations which are only going to grow in terms of the need that they meet.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Hart. Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Next is 7.13, banning fossil fuel advertising on council land. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pulford to move, Councillor Bolton to second. Councillor Pulford?
Thank you, Mayor. We called for a report into this, I think it was sometime last year. There's a growing movement. Lots of fossil fuel companies use advertising to kind of greenwash their products. We know that burning fossil fuels and the emissions it create are the key driver of the climate crisis, which is contributing to rising temperatures, which we had a motion on earlier about extreme heat events being experienced more often and the support we need to provide to our community for that. This motion would mean that in future contracts we will ban fossil fuel advertising that allows this kind of greenwashing that helps them to maintain any kind of social license while they destroy the future of our planet. It reduces their opportunities to do that. It's another strong stand like we have against, say, gambling or pokies. It won't currently. None of the organisations that this policy would affect receive funding from fossil fuel companies, so it's not going to have any financial impact. It could have a future financial impact, but people aren't losing money at the moment because of this. So happy to support this ban, which will apply for future contracts. And thank you to officers for their work on this.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Bolton as a seconder.
I think this is important, but it's only really a small thing. But I think it is still important to ban fossil fuel advertising on council facilities, such as sports grounds, etc. I think it's a way of forcing the fossil fuel industry, which has very long tentacles, forcing it to recognise that it's not welcome, and we need a shift away from fossil fuel. So while it's not a major leap forward, it is still a welcome initiative to try and get rid of fossil fuel and make it difficult for fossil fuel companies.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Any other speakers on this item? We'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Next is 7.14, Aboriginal place names on postal channels. Do I have a mover? Councillor Riley to move. A seconder? Councillor Bolton to second. Councillor Riley?
Yeah, just thanking the officers for their work on following up on this notice of motion and leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Bolton, anything to add? Great. Any other speakers on this item? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That was carried. I might just do that again slowly. I didn't see everyone's hands. All those in favour of this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those against? 1, and then 1 abstention. Okay, so that was carried. Yeah, it certainly looks like it.
She's just walked away.
Yeah. All good. All right, next is 7.15, the proposed sale at 2 Spry Street in Coburg North. Any, sorry, do I have a motion on this one? Councillor Riley to move. Councillor Hart to second. Councillor Riley.
This is just another important step in the process for creating more open space, and this house is a piece that we don't need to keep in our asset stock, so the funds raised from this will help us with our ongoing budget and other recreation work. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Hart, anything to add?
No, support Councillor Riley's comments.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bolton, is that speaking?
In favour.
In favour, okay.
Just to say very briefly that the local community who really desired this to happen, so that they can have a great clear pathway to the creek and or the whole community, I think we'll be very excited with this moving forward.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Next is 7.16, support for neighbourhood houses.
I'm
Councillor
proposing
Bolton?
that we defer this item just for 1 month.
Yep, I'll see if you've got a seconder for that. Councillor Pulford to... Oh, yep, Councillor... I saw you first. Councillor Pulford to second. Do you wish to speak to why we need a deferral?
Well, maybe, yeah, I could speak to why, because some councillors would be aware, but also, I mean, people in the community need to know why.
Yes.
The reason why is I moved a motion at the last council meeting about the fact that council's public liability insurance no longer covered uninsured groups that hired out the facilities at neighbourhood houses, and that was meaning that neighbourhood houses were having to turn groups away, and informal community groups are generally not incorporated, so it meant that they were being turned away. Now, council has had negotiation with the community, with our community liability policy provider, and so council is proposing extension of the policy in this motion, in the motion before us, to provide cover for neighbourhood houses. But the insurer has recommended, or not recommended, has said that this is on the condition that the hiring occur through the council rather than neighbourhood houses for incorporated groups. And certainly 1 or 2 neighbourhood houses I've spoken to would like to find out how that would work. So it's really just to, and we had the public holiday yesterday, which limited a lot, they didn't necessarily know this was on the agenda. So it's just to give time to, for the neighbourhood houses to, understand what's being proposed.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Pulford is the seconder. Nothing to add. Are there any other speakers on this? Nope. So we'll vote on the deferral then. All those in favour of deferring this to next month? All those against? That has been carried. Next is 7.17, the adoption of council's governance rules. Councillor Pavlidis, you wish to move? I'll just confirm what it is that you're moving.
A deferral.
Yep, I was still, sorry. What was that? Yep, so...
a deferral.
Sorry, okay, so... Yeah, a deferral. And what month was that until?
Okay, basically it's, we're deferring it to February 2024 to allow for further review of the provisions relating to minutes, decision notices, conflict of interest, and quorum.
Great. I'll see if you've got a seconder for that. Councillor Conlon to second. Councillor Pavlidis, do you wish to speak to this?
I think it's pretty evident that we need to review our governance rules based on the events of the last couple of months. So, no, nothing further.
Thanks, Councillor Pavlidis. Councillor Conlon, anything to add?
I mean, yeah, I think we need to, just refine some of the processes, particularly around rescission. And I think we'll probably need to put a bit of time and effort into that, I think.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Any speakers against this? Any other speakers on this? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. 7.18 is Year 3 Council Action Plan 2023 to 24 First Quarter Performance Report. Do we have a motion? Councillor Pulford to move, Councillor Riley to second. Councillor Pulford.
The council plan lists all the action plan lists everything that we're going to do over our term. This is an update on this year's programs, just the first quarter, so it's only been 3 months. Take a read if you want to see what we're doing.
Councillor Riley, anything to add? Nothing to add. Any speakers against this? Any other speakers on this? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. Now, I'll just see if I can get a motion for an extension of time from 10:30 to 11. Councillor Hart to move, Councillor Riley to second. All those in favour? Those against? That's been carried. So we'll move on to 7.19, which is the Financial Management Report for the period ended 30th of September 2023. Councillor Riley, you had your hand up first. I'll just see if you've got a seconder. Councillor Conlon to second. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, look, just the financial report for the period ending 30 September. There's some important changes happening in the budget, or this current budget and this quarter, for quarter one, around our significant projects in Saxon Street and some of the savings from Fleming Park, which was partly due to the fact that we crunched this work into 2 years instead of doing over 3 or 4. Which is really good news, and I commend everyone to read them because all our long-term indicators for finances are very strong, and I commend the staff on all the work they've been doing on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Conlon is the seconder.
Nothing to add.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Are there any speakers against this? Any other speakers on this? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.20 is the Audit and Risk Committee Charter Review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pulford to move. Councillor Riley to second. Councillor Pulford.
No, nothing to add. Take it as read.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Riley. Take it as read. All right. Sorry, Councillor Pavlidis, you've got your hand up. Was that a question or to speak against?
Probably both, maybe.
Okay.
I'm just questioning something in the attachment, the one track changes, as to why the committee or the chair will not be presenting the performance report to a councillor briefing. Instead, it just comes straight to council. Doesn't provide councillors the opportunity to ask the committee any question.
Thanks for the question. We'll go to Sue to answer that one.
Through the Mayor, so in the issues section of the report, it includes some commentary on this, and it's around, whilst the chairperson can continue to present the report informally, for example, at council briefings or through other mechanisms, we don't need to explicitly state this, given that the report must be presented to council formally.
Thanks, Sue. So I'll see then if there are any speakers against this motion, or if there are any speakers in favour of this motion. If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That has been carried. And Councillor Pavlidis, can I just confirm, was that against or an abstention? It's okay. Just unmute yourself. Oh no.
Sorry, against.
Against. All right, we'll have that noted then. Okay, next up is 7.21, the Governance Report, November 2023, Cyclical Report. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Pulford to move, Councillor Conlon to second, Councillor Pulford.
Yeah, standard item includes a bunch of different things, including minutes from our Sustainable Transport Advisory Committee meetings, and approves the Friends of ALIO group as a fundraiser, sets the dates and times for council meetings next year. So please note those in your diaries. and some instruments of delegation. But yeah, standard item, bunch of business.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Conlon as the seconder, nothing to add. Are there any speakers against this item? You shook your head already, so. Any speakers on this item at all? No? All right, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.22 is Contract Award RFT-2023-452 Road Reconstruction Works at Waratah Street in Pascoe Vale. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hart to move. Councillor Yildiz to second. Councillor Hart.
As read.
As read. Councillor Yildiz as read. Any speakers against? Any other speakers on this item? Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.23 Contract Award EXE-2023-501 Asset Management System and Associated Services. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pulford to move. A seconder. Councillor Yildiz to second. Councillor Pulford.
It is read.
Yep, Councillor Yildiz, take it as read. Any other speakers on this? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. 7.24 Contract EXE-2023-513 Telecommunication Services. A motion, Councillor Pulford, and Councillor Bolton to second. Councillor Pulford.
People will be pleased to know it's not with Optus. Can't say that's my joke. Someone said that earlier tonight, one of the officers, right?
Oh, you shouldn't take credit for it.
No, I can't do that.
Okay. At least you're honest. Yeah. Nah, sorry. Councillor Bolton, anything to add to that? Okay, nothing defamatory to add to that. Okay, any speakers against this? No? Any other speakers on this? All right, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Next is 7.25 Contract Award RFT-2023-445 Provision of Electrical Services. Do I have a mover? Councillor Riley to move. Councillor Hart to second. Councillor Riley? No, take it as read. Councillor Hart? Take it as read. Any speakers on this item? Put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. So now we are up to number 8, which is notices of motion. And the one notice of motion that we've got left is 8.1, pedestrian safety around Bonwick Street in Fawkner. And this is Councillor Bolton's notice of motion. I'll see if there is a seconder for this motion. Councillor Hart to second. Councillor Bolton.
There are 3 components to this motion. One is about putting pedestrian operated traffic lights on the pedestrian crossing on Dukes Road. Oscar, I do talk about roads, rates and rubbish.
Anyways, we'll just focus on the motion.
Erecting a pedestrian sign of the walking legs pedestrian sign at the pedestrian crossing in the car park at the back of the shops on the eastern side of the Bonwick Street shops. And lastly, to examine ways of improving the traffic flow to ensure the eastbound traffic turning right into Bonwick Street from Dukes Road doesn't back up across the pedestrian crossing. And there's a little slight amendment from
so I think we've got the amended.
Director. Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
There we go.
That this will be as part of the report back on proposed projects prioritised through the Fawkner Transport Study. The reason for me moving this motion is because the Bonwick Street Shopping Centre has got super busy over probably the last 6 years, like super duper busy, and particularly with cars, and it's angle parking, which sort of in a sense adds an extra layer of danger on the street. But then the pedestrian crossing was probably okay for maybe 10 years ago, but it's not okay for now, being a super busy area. And what I noticed, actually, especially since the council did the streetscaping, I don't think that's the cause of it, but the traffic is backed up around the corner over the top of the pedestrian crossing. there've been a lot of near misses on that pedestrian crossing, and so that's why people want pedestrian operated traffic lights there. And then in the car park at the back, a lot of cars it's quite busy with painted lines on different parts of the road, and I think some of it is drivers not really paying attention. Some of it is confusion because of the other line markings on the road. And so I've certainly had requests from mainly elderly people who've nearly got skittled in the car park. So it's really just a simple request to put up the walking leg sign in the car park. So yeah, that's really a very simple motion. And also, the last community meeting that I held in Fawkner, one of the residents was talking about the need for examining ways of improving the traffic flow to actually ease some of the problems that exist in that shopping strip.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Hart as the seconder.
Yeah, just to endorse that, I was also at that community meeting. Councillor Bolton had up there and that identified these issues, and I think it really just illustrates the importance of the earlier motion tonight that we have indexation and increasingly seeing such motions around all sorts of similar issues right across. I think it's a timely illustration.
Thanks, Councillor Hart. Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, we'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. So we've dealt with item 8.2 and items 9.1 and 9.2. So now number 10, foreshadowed items. Are there any items that councillors wish to foreshadow for our next meeting? No? All right. There's no urgent business items. And so we'll now close the meeting to the public as we have confidential items for this evening. So could I please have a mover to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Davidson to move. Councillor Hart to second. All those in favour? All those against? That's been carried. So I would like to thank those watching on the live stream, and to the few of you who are still in the gallery, thank you for your interest in council matters. I wish you all a good night. So I'll now declare the council meeting closed to the public at 10:36 p.m.